be funny. All right, so I'm off mute now, right?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
That's right. We got you.
All right, great. I was just saying that it's a pretty simple thing. One of the things that we must understand is that the so-called black community is the most abused community within itself and outside of itself. And so the mass misinformation on the subject that we're discussing is present because of that factor. You know, people think that they can come into our community and do anything to us. And we also have the same disposition because psychologically we've been under someone else's jurisdiction so long that we develop these bad habits where we think we can do those things. But the simple answer to this is that if people want to deal with nationality and they want to solve problems based on that, they have to go through some very fundamental and basic steps. The first thing that you need is a community of people. That's the first thing. The second thing you need to know is what type of governments are lawful on this land and why. Those two things will solve most of the other discussions that we could possibly have. And so the answer to the second one is that there's only two forms of government that can exist where we live at right now. And that is the United States of America, with its head being the federal government, and indigenous governments or tribal governments. There are no other types of governments on this land. And once we get that, we will be clear about what to do. The why to that is because indigenous governments were here before Europeans came here. So they have a right by law to exist. And they have been existing before, during, and if there's ever, a loss of the United States of America, you have indigenous people here governing themselves. The United States of America came by way of very specific things too, but most of us don't know what that process was. So one of the things we do is educate our nationals. The Declaration of Independence was an expatriation document signed by the leaders of government amongst Europeans to declare to their former authorities that they were no longer under their authority. There were only two people allowed to sign the documents, Charles Thompson and John Hancock. And the reason why those people were allowed to sign is because they had dual nationality. John Hancock and Charles Thompson were citizens of tribes. Thomas Jefferson wasn't, Thomas Paine wasn't, George Washington wasn't, and this is why when you go and you study the original signatures on the Declaration of Independence, there were only two. The other people came later. That was the expatriation document. And later they wrote the Articles of Confederation to govern themselves, and then it led to the Constitution and, statutes and law, etc. But their start came from indigenous peoples. That is what is not known to us. What's also not known to us is that we were those indigenous people. We are learning that, of course, but our people don't know that. And so once we solve the fact that there can only be two types of government, then how do you go about organizing that government? The problem is actually solved. All right? If someone does not want to be a part of the Shi Amaru tribal government that we're in, it doesn't mean that they can't operate indigenous government. It just means they need to know the steps to do it. Walking around and calling yourself an Indian or indigenous and you're stateless is not the path to go forward with. You need a community. You need institutions, medical institutions, legal institutions. Those are formed around training, teaching people, and then operating those particular things. One of the reasons why, even though we have been slandered, we haven't been attacked like other people is because of us following those steps. We get a lot of flack in different other ways, but they haven't come to us and said, what you're doing is illegal. What you're doing is unlawful. And so all indigenous people need to understand is they need to learn what a plebiscite is. They need to learn how to function a community. They need a constitution. They need different ministries and departments to operate, and then they can govern themselves. That is the simple part. They also need to understand that you being here in the United States of America does not exonerate you from subject matter jurisdiction. There are two types of jurisdiction: personal and subject matter. So if you claim that you don't want to be any part of the United States of America, the interface here is going to create what's called subject matter jurisdiction. So you still have to be honorable and respect laws. For instance, people like Taj Tariq Bey, I've said this to him personally, so I'm not talking behind his back, who will come and offer you a Moorish license. They're not taking into account that they don't have a community to protect you or back you up, or the fact that that type of instrument is not a lawful instrument on this particular land. And so if you're going to offer somebody that particular type of instrument and you're not going to offer them the right methodology to set up your jurisdiction, you're going to create a problem for that particular person. And so the study in law is not the paramount thing. Knowing international procedures at law is a better thing, because you can open up a Black's Law Dictionary and somebody can direct you into studying all kinds of things. But if you don't understand the basics of international law, you have a problem. So what we are doing in ARNA is kind of like a little template for other people. We coach, train, and teach people not only here, but I've had discussions with people in Jamaica, in the Congo, and done work for them to establish jurisdictions, even in the Bahamas. So we just need to understand indigenous rights. We need to understand our place. We need to understand self-identification in international law, meaning nobody can tell you who you are. You have to tell the world who you are. And then we proceed forward with building. It is what we're building. There are a lot of intricacies to that, but that's just the basics of it.
Thank you for that breakdown, Chief. Really appreciate it. I got a question for you. How do you explain the use of like common areas like the roads? You know, there are times where you see the roadside courthouse. Right. They're going back and forth with the police. How do you explain, or what's the best way to handle the common areas as far as taxpayers or, you know, the ability to move in common areas, sir?
Okay. It's pretty simple. Jurisdictions cover land and they cover contract. So the question is, who built the road? What entity built the road? So if you're driving down 95, all right, that is a federalized and a state law territory for the different states that, you know, are part of those things. So when you're on that particular road, the question is, what do the statutes say? What do other bodies of law say about traveling on those things? And it's very simple. If you go to any code or statute in a state, they have rules for its residents and they have rules for its non-residents. Residents are required to have a license. Non-residents must have a license from the jurisdiction that they descend from. And then it goes back to government. So now, if residents in Massachusetts are required to have a Massachusetts license, if you're a non-resident, you need to have a license or some type of travel documents from the state that you descend from. If you don't descend from those states, what other jurisdiction could you descend from? We solved it. You have to be from some type of indigenous or tribal government, because there's only two types of government here. You got the states and the federal government, and you got tribal governments. So if you want to use the common spaces in the roads, you need those instruments to move on those particular roads. The second thing is, the state of Massachusetts or the Massachusetts Republic, whatever terminology you want to use for it, they took investment from their citizens and built the road and maintained the road. So this goes further into the issue of land. We have, from our studies, 160 acres per person on the Dawes Roll who lost land unlawfully. We have to go through the meticulous acts of reclamation. But it takes groups of people to do that. It takes teams of lawful jurists to do that, to put in claims to reclaim land. That's something that we do, and that's something that we need to do more. But as we reclaim the land, if you go into any so-called Native American reservation, the roads on there are controlled by the tribe that owns that area. So it's pretty simple. We can use the common spaces as indigenous people. We have to respect the law of the tribes that we're interacting with, other tribes, ourselves, and the state and the federal governments that we're interacting with. If you're on the road and you're saying, I have a right to travel, I don't need any of those instruments, sure, go right ahead. And then as you do that, as you proceed through your, executing your right, you have to also recognize you can have some type of responsibility. So if you get pulled over by a state trooper, you're going to have to go through all of those things that you have to go through, going to court, doing the things that you have to do. The question is, are you astute enough at law to protect yourself in that situation? So the roads can be used by anybody. I can't tell people what they can't do, but I can advise them based on the experience that I have. If you're going to say, I'm going to travel with no license, no tribal license, no state license, nothing, you're going to suffer. And the reason why you're going to suffer is because you're not presenting yourself to come from a jurisdiction. Jurisdictions are for people's protection. There is no individual sovereignty. If you're going to be stateless and say, I can do what I want, you have to take the responsibility that comes with that. And this is where we get into natural law. You say, I got a right, it's a responsibility smacking you right back in your face. You have to face it and deal with it.
Thank you for that breakdown, brother. The second part of my question is, as you know, they've deemed half of Oklahoma as Indian territory. And in fact, by them winning that particular case or using that authority, which a part of it was the McGirt case, they're specifically utilizing the Treaty of 1866. So on my website, we have the meeting, the town hall meeting that we had with the Honorable Congresswoman Maxine Waters. And we were explaining to Congresswoman Waters that we need for you in Congress, and especially you being a senior in Congress, to start applying pressure to these Indian tribes. Because the Indian tribes are using the Treaty of 1866 in order to have half of Oklahoma, but the same treaties are not acknowledging the rights of our people that the treaties are supposed to cover. So right. How do you think is the most effective way for us? Because what we're saying to Congressman Waters is start holding up that money. If they're getting billions of dollars of fundings, they don't have the right to be getting that money. It should be getting filtered to our people because they want to have it both ways. They want to have permission to be racist, but yet they still want money in order to function. So right. What do you think is one of the most effective ways to kind of handle that situation, Chief?
See, now we're getting into political strategy. See, political strategy is different than the law itself. The law could be standing there and say, oh, these treaties say these particular things. Now, how do you enforce a right? You enforce a right by strategy. Now, I can't speak on Congresswoman Waters and to say what she would do. But I can say this. She's older, and that sometimes she's going to be gone. The reality is each one of our tribal governments and our institutions that are focusing on our indigenous rights have to engage in a strategy to get our people in positions so that these laws can be enforced. That's the only way they're going to be enforced. So you, myself, other people who are more experienced, we have to run for office, or we have to train people to run for office to get into these particular positions. There's no way we're going to get, and I'm not saying this about her, but people who have been getting so much benefit from that side to look at us as important. They could do it out of the goodness of their heart, but there's no pressure on them to do it. When you're dealing with politics, you're dealing with the ability to apply pressure. We have not been applying any pressure because we didn't have really good strategies in politics. The strategy in politics is indigenous people need to flood their city halls, flood their local government, flood their state governments, flood the federal government. We're intelligent enough now. We've been around now. We have people that can train people in civics and law. So when they get there, they can cover our objectives. The Congressional Black Caucus is for Black people. And that psychology that Black people have is that they are a particular group of people who are going to handle things a particular way. They're mostly Democrat for the most part, mostly liberal. They ain't thinking about nothing about indigenous rights. They're thinking about, what applies to liberal ethics of African Americans.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, so we're not gonna be able to get these people to think like we think. The people who are gonna think like we think are us and our children. So this is where you get into long-term strategy. Like, we're looking at 20, 30 years. How does our plan look as indigenous peoples as far as politics? We need a political party. We need all of these things in order to effectively change these things. Shout out to any of the congressmen who have done anything, but their agenda is not indigenous. Ours is. So we're the ones who are going to do it. We got to run for Congress. We got to change this Congressional Black Caucus to our values, our code, and then implement it. Right now, though, if they do anything good, that's cool. And there's ways we could apply short-term pressure to them. Shoot, we could have a whole forum where we address that matter politically on a national level. It'll gain some traction and attention from the media. Who are these black people talking about they're indigenous and talking about this 1866 treaty? So we can apply short-term pressure too.
Thank you so much for that. And I would like to make sure that to invite you. We do take our trip to Washington, D.C. Part of the delegation made the trip that was dealing with the, with the Tulsa incident, just came back from D.C. And when we come back again, my cousin is the lead attorney, DeMario Solomon Simmons, Creek Indian. And I would like to make sure that you are invited to the trip to D.C., as our guest.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that. So.
Yes, sir. Awesome. Dope. I appreciate it.
Of course. Big Chief, you got some questions? Or Yashika, y'all got some questions? Or Shan? I know that y'all had a list of questions also for Chief Ali.
Right. Well, I think we'll go last. I wanted to get the opportunity first to his Tribal Mason. If y'all want to, if y'all had anything for Chief. If not, we'll go down the list. We'll start a queue, and we can start with you. Ant, you got something?
Yeah, I ain't got no questions at the moment for him, brother. Everything he was saying, I already get it, and I understand what he's on.
All right, appreciate it. What's up with it, Mercedes? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great, bro. How about you?
I'm cool. I'm glad you can make it. You had anything for the Chief?
Man, Ali, I'll hit you up if I need you, but
Yes.
Yeah, definitely appreciate you coming on and speaking our truth out here. I think there was people before in the last group that wanted to know more about Shi Amaru tribe and kind of our placement and things like that. So I think we talked about that briefly, but if anyone else wants clarity on that or, what we're about, that would be great if you could share.
Okay. Absolutely. We are pretty simple. What we are doing in the Shi Amaru tribe is everything that I just said. We're operating in indigenous governments. We are a 12-department government, and we're covering all aspects of government. The first ministry is defense and intelligence. Second ministry is economics and engineering. Third ministry is communications and diplomacy. Fourth ministry is community action and family. Fifth ministry is arts and culture. The sixth ministry is agriculture and health. Seventh ministry is law and justice. The eighth ministry is forensics, how to bury the dead and take care of the dead, and midwifery. The ninth ministry is education. 10th ministry deals with civics, corporations, forming corporations and businesses and government. Then we have technology and science, the ministry. And the last one is our traditional indigenous spiritual practices. So we use all of those ministries to govern, to educate, to do everything that we're doing. And it works. It employs, literally, when I say thousands of people, from people who are jurists to people who are health advocates and doctors. So we have the ability to credential our own people, to set up our own drill societies when we have internal issues, arbitration. We do all of that. And it's been a work in progress. It took years and years of curriculum development and trial and error to do these things. But the beautiful thing is we have all of that information summarized so we can share it with all of our people. And they come in. We do background checks on people to make sure that we're not bringing in pedophiles and people who committed capital crimes and all kind of stuff like that. And we do genealogy searches on the people to gather their family's information. We do all of that stuff, and we've been doing it for quite a while. And that's our operation. As far as the lineage itself, the term "she" comes from the group of people that we are calling Olmecs and the pre-classic minds. So that is a term that they use to identify themselves. We use that term because, as far as we know, that group of people were the first writers, and they were using these particular designations. So we didn't want to use a lot of late misnomers. We do understand that those misnomers exist, like Indian, and we use them in colloquial discussion. But if we were in some type of lawful context, we would address that differently. And so, as far as the lineage itself, this conversation goes really far because, I know that'll bring some controversy, but it is our position, and this is just our current position based on everything that we've studied, that this is the oldest lineage of people on the planet. And that can be discussed and debated. It won't affect our lawful and legal stance. It is just a discussion on history. And the later tribes like the Yamasee and the Gaul in the South and others are, in our estimation, lineal members of these people who had their base primarily in what is now Mexico. And it's now Mexico. It wasn't then. And, of course, it spread across North America as what we call the mound building civilization. So that's who we are.
Thanks,
yeah, appreciate that. That was dope. What's up with it, L? You got something for us, family? Look at shrugs.
Yo, I got it. I was writing down some notes and stuff right now in between listening and handling some stuff at the house. Can I jump in later?
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, family. What's up with it, Johnny Aboriginal? You got something for us?
Peace. I just wanted to say, with the Dawes rule, that's not the only criteria that people of American Indian descent could use to trace their lineage. Because there's plenty of other different tribal rolls, tribal censuses, different Indian census records that one could trace their lineage back to predating the Dawes rule in different areas. So people who not from Oklahoma or Texas or Arkansas or North Louisiana, Missouri, Kansas area wouldn't necessarily find their ancestors on the Dawes rule. If your people back North Carolina, Virginia, Georgia, South Louisiana, et cetera, Delaware, you'll have different tribal records that are relative to those tribes that were from those areas. So you're not going to always find your ancestors on the Dawes rule way in Oklahoma if your people never had any historical ancestral ties to Oklahoma. So, once you find your family lineage, your bloodline, your family members, that's your tribe. That's your tribal community. That's basically what makes up a tribe. Anybody that actually has kinship or bloodline relation to one another that traces back to historical American Indian ancestors on documentation, with a paper trail. That's what creates a tribe. That's what restores a tribal community. So, I just basically wanted to add, the Dawes rule, that's not the only criteria that one could identify American Indian ancestors on historical documentation. If your people are not from the Oklahoma area.
That's all accurate information. I definitely agree. We also have Brother Sharif Anil Bey in the building, too. He's on the stage. So welcome, Brother.
Islam, peace. Yes, sir.
Islam to the room. Islam everybody.
Islam.
Yes, sir.
Peace, Sharif. Appreciate you pulling up.
Oh, peace. Yo, I ain't talked to you in a minute. Dr. Ali, that's my guy right there.
Yes, sir. Indeed. Peace, God.
he made bro, you made a lot of people mad at you 2016 in Harlem when you said that our brother got ran out of Harlem by a bunch of Saracens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is heated.
Harlem was a heated environment. It was interesting, but necessary because we at war, bro, and we at war to try to restore something. And
yes, sir.
It's inevitable.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sharif, I got a question for you, if I may.
Of course, yes, sir.
Chief Ali was able to give us a lot of information that's coming from the tribal perspective and the indigenous perspective. I think just as valuable are the works that you do that not only is limited to that, but also working within the political arena.
Yes, sir.
I'm fortunate enough to be a comrade and brother of yours for 30 plus years. And
absolutely.
Doing that, seeing how the works were done in Syracuse, I see a lot of key positions of long-term councilmen,
sir.
For over 5 years, over 10 years.
10 years, yes, sir.
And now with the possibility of even going into City Hall. And
yes, sir.
With that type of ability to do so can be tremendous.
Yes, sir.
Why do you think that would be such an effective route to take in order to not necessarily be the ends, but a means to the ultimate goal? Why do you think that approach could be possible? And can you kind of explain what that means?
Yes, sir. When I first came into the room, Dr. Ali was talking about political engagement, and I think that's first. I was pleasantly surprised to hear that, but I think that's very smart. I don't think it's the only way, but I think it's a very powerful way, especially in American society. One, because you have the ability to do so. You see what I mean? And two, because it's through the political process that the sovereign power is executed by American citizens. In other words, you change the society and you change social environment around yourself and around others through the political process. So, you've got work on the outside of it. You want to have people on the inside as well, so that you're not fighting the power per se. You're doing what we say, you're being the power. So, when we come to the meeting with politicians or elected officials or other officials in government, we're really meeting with our brother and sister on the other end of the table. So the meeting is already had. The real meeting was already took place. And so that the formal meeting is really a formality. That's how Europeans play the game. You know what I'm saying? So we want to be able to play the game the same way. So if we want to talk about things like recognition of indigenous status for people that are misnomered, Negro, Black, colored, etc., right? And we want to say, if we want to make it a part of the social fabric, that's a powerful way to make it a part of the social fabric. Remember, the whole idea of Christopher Columbus discovering America was not a matter of that was a political decision. That was Italians getting together and putting their pennies together and pushing that issue socially. That's what that was. And so they could do it, we can do it. Mm-hmm. And so when you have people making laws, right? When you have legislators, that's what a legislator does. They make law. And their job is to make law based on the needs of their constituents. That's their job. Sad part is about most of us, we're so politically disenfranchised that we don't follow our dollar. You know what I mean? We pay into the tax base, which means we pay their salaries. We're their boss, but we don't tell them what to do. So they do what they want. You see what I'm saying? So what we want to be politically active in that respect for our own issues. If my issue is recognition of indigenous status in American society, then my legislators, first of all, I want to have a strong enough groundswell, enough people like on this call and in this room that take this issue to heart. Secondly, I want those people to lean, or I want through those people to lean on my local legislator, my local lawmaker, and say, yo, you need to sponsor this or else you out of here. It's just that simple. That's the power. That's the power in political and civic engagement, is that you literally tell the electors, the politicians, what to do and how to write the laws. It's for me, it's far better to be at the table telling them how to write the laws and influencing how the laws are written than arguing the law after the fact.
Bingo.
Thank you for that. Wow. Thank you.
Peace. What's up with it, Raspy? I see you up here, fam. You got something for us?
I'm gonna let the room go ahead and keep getting started. Give me a minute. Right. I'm just sitting back taking notes.
All right. What's up with it, Wax?
Peace, Raspy.
Yeah. Peace, y'all. My bad, y'all. What's happening to the room, man? My bad.
What's up, Raspy?
I'm just chilling right now, man. I'm about to roll up smoking. I'm just listening. I'm gonna come in later. Y'all go ahead and get it popping. I'm tuned in though.
For sure. What's up with it, Wax? You got something for us?
Yeah, I got a quick question for you. Give me 1 second. In the room the other day, I kind of got cut off from it, but I kind of wanted Ali to kind of address the situation about, why he went through this as a process. But having ARNA as a 501d, there was some controversy about, why he did that, blah, 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 but I just wanted him to address that in the room.
Yeah, so let me clarify that. I don't know who. I stated this, so let me clarify that. And I was wrong on the 501d. It was a foreign trust in Mexico, not the 501d. So can you explain to us why you opened up a foreign trust in Mexico to base your organization out of? That's false. I don't know where y'all getting this information from. See, I got it from out of your book. So I'm telling you, I got this from out your book. Yeah, you can cite the book and you can cite the page and you can bring the economic Bible that you got. Yeah, economic Bible. Yep. Yeah. So what page? Oh, my bad. Up in the economic Bible, you got the address for your foreign trust and your 98 number up in there. You got a screenshot of it. Yeah, I do, but that's not saying that's not the address you use for your foreign government in Mexico on your documentations. No, sir. You're confusing a business that was placed in Mexico to the founding of ARNA, or at the time was ISIS, and that book, the Economic Bible, wasn't even written when we formed the International Society of Indigenous Sovereigns, which later, took on the name ARNA. That book wasn't even written. So let me explain what that is. Let me explain what it is. And see, this is instrumental. If I were coming to you or anybody else and they form something, it's pretty simple. You just ask the person what they did to form it. And so that particular entity was the entity that we used to carry out functions that we did not want to carry out on this particular landmass amongst the United States of America, the continental United States of America. But prior to that, we formed something called the International Indigenous Society. That was our plebiscite to announce to the Attorney General, the Secretary of State at the time, who was Condoleezza Rice, that we were forming our indigenous government. That was the name of the entity, International Indigenous Society. It had no 98 numbers. It wasn't a 501d. It wasn't any of those things. And so y'all created a what? Say it again. What did y'all create?
Created a plebiscite.
So y'all created a plebiscite in order to create y'all.
Plebiscites are used to create or form your actual
plebiscite. I can explain how we use it. Hold on. A plebiscite doesn't. No, let me finish. Let me finish. You asked me a question. Go ahead. I know, but you asked me a question. I want to let me explain to you, and you get clarity because you don't have clarity right now. I'm the one that can give you clarity because I'm the official witness of these particular things. And a question was asked of me from, I guess, multiple directions. I could clear it up. It's pretty easy. So again, the International Indigenous Society was the name that we used to form our plebiscite. We also had the International Society of Indigenous Sovereigns. Anybody who knows me knows that name ISIS was in existence before there was a terrorist group that was called ISIS. One of the reasons we abandoned the use of the name is because of what happened to me and a brother named Kendi El Bay. We got detained by TSA, the FBI, and other people, and I still have that documentation as well. And then a year later is when ISIS came as the terrorist organization. We saw what they were doing. This is counterintelligence programming. So my point is, the International Society of Indigenous Sovereigns was the name of the indigenous government we operated. This is back in 2005. There was no economic Bible written. We weren't even using 98 numbers to do anything when we founded that. It was not a 501d. It was not a business entity. It was a jurisdiction. That's it. That's the plain skinny of it. I got every document that we've ever communicated to the United States government or any other power We've communicated to Libya. We've been communicating to international parties for over 15 years. So I'm the best person to explain these things. There was no start with no 501D. That 98 number was for a trust we set up to carry out business internationally. That's all it was. So anybody who said we formed our institution as a 501D, they're misinformed. Anybody who believes that the economic Bible. Let me finish. I'm almost finished. All right. Anybody who says that we formed an entity with a 98 number as the founding of our government, they're misinformed. So, and this is instructional, especially when we're talking about the law. To have a tacit assumption in law is a violation of a witness who has not made testimony. That's like asking a witness to get on the stand and letting the lawyer talk, or letting somebody else in the audience talk. No, you ask the witness, and the witness makes their testimony. So this is my first time making a testimony to you, and now you know what it is, so you don't have to assume any other things. And we can also, if you would like, I don't even know who I'm talking to. Who am I talking to?
You're talking to me. You're talking to me.
Oh, what's your name? Raspy. Okay, Raspy, if you would like those documents shared with you, I shared them openly with people so the community will know how we were founded. And I've been doing that for 15 years. You can literally go to the website, download the protocol manual, and see those documents. And so that's not something that we hide. It's not something that's cloudy. People make it cloudy because they possibly have an agenda, or they're confused, or they don't just do the simple thing. Go ask the people so we can tell you.
So how does that create a tribe? Like everything.
It creates a tribe because we have tribal.
Let me finish paraphrasing this question so you can know where I'm coming from. The reason I'm asking you this question is because I have two close friends in Chief Two Hawks and Chief Warhorse. And from the way that you explaining this and from the way that I have seen their paperwork, this is two different things. And I know for a fact that these two chiefs have started bloodline, land ties, tribes here in America, in Turtle Island.
Same thing we did.
But I don't hear you speaking the same language that I hear from them. I hear you saying y'all started the ISIS organization and all of that there, but that's not the same thing.
I didn't say organization, brother. I never said organization.
Oh, well, all right.
You said organization.
ISIS government. It's still the same criteria that I'm hearing from you. It's not the same criteria I hear from Chief Warhorse.
It doesn't have to be. What it has to be is lawful. And let me explain, because you asked the question. You said, how did we form it? We formed it from the families who did their genealogy to prove their ties to the land. A government is the people. A name that you use is insignificant because you can change the name. You can use any name. It's the people. So it's the people who were with me forming this government based on, we were the first ones to do extensive genealogy searches. Go look at it. We were using it as a service for people all the way back to 1998 when I met with the Empress. If anybody else has documentation, they can show me. But we've been doing these genealogy searches on our family as a community back to that particular time. So to answer your question is, bloodline ties of our families let us know who we were, and we took that information and we formed a tribe with it. That's it. That's simple.
Thank you for clarifying that, Chief. And I think that was important also because I know that Big Chief was in the room the other day when we were saying that we were in class with the Empress in Cleveland, Ohio. That was back in like 91. We would be in class in Cleveland, and she was our classmate. And then we all branched off and went our different ways. So thank you for clarifying that, brother.
Okay.
Yeah, I can say something right quick.
Oh, yes, sir.
So when y'all say y'all trace y'all bloodlines back to the land, what criteria do y'all use to form as far as like tribal identity or tribal descent? Usually when someone traces their tribal identity, traces their lineage back to a particular tribal identity, that'll be the tribal lineage that they descend from or that they would claim. So when y'all trace y'all tribal lineages, are y'all finding Xi Amaru genealogy, or do y'all have other tribal lineages that y'all trace back to? Because usually that would be the identity that people would claim, once they trace their lineage back to a particular tribe or lineage, on certain roads, that would be the tribe that they would claim. So how do y'all go about tracing people lineages back to certain areas or certain tribes in order to be Xi Amaru? Like, is there any type of Xi Amaru historical documentation that people could trace back to?
Of course, and it's a simple. I mean, you asked the question, so I'm answering. It's pretty simple. First of all, any government that operates is self-autonomous. What you do and how you trace your tribe, you cannot impose and colonize how we do ours. To do so, you will become a colonizer. Because now you're telling me how I should orchestrate or how we should orchestrate our governing sciences. And that is not what we do as indigenous people. We don't invade other people's jurisdiction and tell them how they should establish anything. That's the first thing. And that's very important to the psychology that I'm starting to see that is present amongst our people. The second thing is when we do our particular tribal traces, we're tracing them back to the common names of the tribes that we know. Choctaw, Yamasee, different groups that are common. But what we have done in ARNA is we have linguistically, genetically, and we have culturally traced these lineages back to a classical civilization that they all descend from. An example of this would be, we have a chief named Powhatan. Powhatan is not the name of a tribe. Powhatan is the name of a chief. And Powhatan is the name of a ceremony that took place every solstice and during the winter solstices, summer solstices, autumnal equinox, and vernal equinoxes. It was the calendar. But Powhatan is also a Mayan god. So the question just begs, how did a hieroglyphic that proceeds from Bonham Peck end up in Virginia as the name of a chief? It's pretty simple. It's called linguistic genetics. And we could trace that particular tribe's origins back to Mexico based on the languages that they use, the systems that they use, the cultural systems, the calendars. So our job in ARNA is to do that. We do historical linguistic genetic tracing. We do physical genetic tracing. Brother Isa Almaty can testify to this. I have the machines. I can test your DNA right now and tell you all about yourself. But what I'm trying to say is our methodology is our methodology. Because it's not yours or other common methodologies doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just our methodology. So what anybody else usually does, they can keep doing it. We're going to usually do what we want to do to establish those particular things. And it's on the website. We put it out in the public so people can read and know how we do that.
I got you. So, like, with historical documentation, in terms of being historical, in order to be a historical entity, I know that, other tribal governments or other tribes use, their tribal censuses. If they were, in a certain time historically in the 1700s or 1800s, existing as a tribe, like the so-called Anawaya or the Cherokee, the Muskogee Creek tribes that were, existing before the Creek in so-called Creek lands, or the Chitimacha or the Atacapa, which is my tribal descent. They have like certain tribal censuses that reflects, their tribal identity. So I was just basically asking along the lines of, what documentation would someone have or use to...
Let me give you an example. Are there white Indians that are claiming to be Aboriginal right now?
Yes.
For sure.
Okay, there are. So now, ask yourself this. How are they receiving services from the government as indigenous people, operations from the government as indigenous people? It's because they employed a strategy. And the bad part about it is we have the lineal ties to prove it. They don't. But they had the political strategy to put themselves into position, and now they're getting things that most of our people should be getting. My point is, it doesn't matter. They're self-identifying as indigenous people. Nobody can stop them. We can talk about them. We can say they're not Indians. We can call them $5 Indians. They're still going to get their checks next week. They're still going to operate on their own land. They're still going to be on Navajo territory.
I don't think they self-identify is coming. It's like ours.
Let me finish my point, bro. Let me finish my point. Because I promise you I will never interrupt you. As you talking, I'm going to just sit back. So my point is, self-identification is a rule of law. I can say out of my mouth, I disagree with the processes and the illegal things that they did to heist indigenous reality. But the reality is, if I'm not politically strong enough to stop them, it doesn't even matter. So I don't give that any attention. My point is that the processes that
tribes are using the CBDID policy, certificate of degree of Indian blood, which is actually also genocidal because of how they structure it. They use tactics for their own survival. So natural law says it's survival of the fittest. You learn how to survive and you survive. They're figuring out how to survive even if we disagree with it. We set up parameters for us to survive as a people. And in that process, our methodology of identifying ourselves is pretty simple, and it's common with those other tribes. We just go about it a different way as we get more extensive. And so that's what we're going to do. It doesn't disqualify us. It hasn't disqualified us. We still do everything that we need to do as a government, and nobody's stopping us, even if they don't like it. They just don't like it. It's like Jewish people. If Hebrews are going to argue that they're not Jews, who cares? They're still going to say they're Jews.
So if someone said, the Shi Amaru isn't a historical tribe, versus like say the Chitimacha or the Atacapa or Saponai, Mattapanai, Chickahominai, or so-called Seminole, because they don't have the tribal census records to trace back to, what would you say to someone like that?
I would say anything. I would explain what I just explained. I would explain what I just explained to you.
Say like with the Lanai Lenape or the Nanticoke, they have documentation with the Tribal Incorporated Body of 1881 that has a list of certain families.
The Shi Amaru is
that's cool. And you know what? The Lenape is not even their name. I could argue that and prove that point very quickly. My point is that I don't care about what other people have to say. If the Lenni Lenape want to operate their government, I'm not stopping them from doing what they're doing. But I also know that's not the name of the historical name of the people. So if you don't know the historical name of the people, it gets into this whole philosophic thing. Lenni Lenape is not their name. Delaware is not their name.
That's just one tribe. So I'm using them as an example because they have the 1880.
But I'm also answering your question. I'm answering your question because your question defeats itself. You are trying to tell me that other people want to disqualify me because they say the Shi are not a tribe. I can go back and say, I can historically document that not only the Shi are the tribe, they were the oldest one, and that these particular tribes that we founded ISIS with are lineally connected to this particular tribe. And that's it. And then we keep it moving. If somebody wants to keep talking about that particular point, they could write a book about it. They could publish it. We could go back and forth and dialogue about it. But it's not going to stop ARNA or the Shi Amaru tribe from carrying out their functions.
No, it wouldn't stop. It's not going to stop. In terms of having jurisdiction or aboriginal title, when those particular tribal groups, and not just the Lanai Lenape, but any of them in North Carolina or Louisiana or Florida, Mississippi, wherever, when they have historical documentation that could point them back, to the land in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s.
And we do too. I think you missed the point. See, you did miss the point.
Why do you keep cutting him off? You just said something about Raspy cutting you off, but you keep cutting Johnny off.
Because the conversation is going in circles. The Shi Amaru tribe, if you go to our website, we have lineal ties to people who are Yamasee, people who are Choctaw. That's my family line, Choctaw. But when I say Shi Amaru tribal government, I'm not saying Choctaw, but I have Choctaw lineage. You see what I'm saying? And that's a part of our expression in our physical documents. So even though we're not using the name Choctaw, we have lineal members of Choctaw. We are not just a tribe. We are a confederation of tribes that is a government. So it would take more study on who we are as a people, because otherwise we'd be talking ourselves in circles. My point is, I'm saying I'm what you are.
Wait. Right? Y'all confederation of tribes as a government?
Or Yamasee, or...
Wait, stop, back up. Hold on, I want you to cross over that point. Y'all confederacy of tribes? Did you just say y'all confederacy of tribes?
We have many tribes that operate in one indigenous government. That's what I'm saying.
That's not a confederacy. Like you know as well as I do, that's not a confederacy.
You can argue it is not a confederacy all you want. What are you going to stop us from being a confederacy?
No, I'm not. That ain't got nothing to do with y'all stopping. We just here for edification. I just said that's not a confederacy.
It is.
Y'all may have
you telling me what I know, and I'm telling you it is. That means we just disagree, brother. That's it.
Okay.
Well, we definitely know. Halito, everybody. This is Phoenix. We definitely know that's not an American Indian Confederacy, and if that's indigenous, then that's a horse of a different color, and completely different than the way the American Indian has to and does operate.
Okay, and what does that have to do with this particular conversation? Because ARNA and the Shi Amaru tribal government has a way that we operate. We express that to people, and if people, are saying that, my position is this, what does that have to do with our promulgation of indigenous rights for our people, as a group of people who have an agenda, like we said, politically, to grow our governments?
I believe I just said that is a matter for indigenous people. As you indicated, I didn't take anything from you. I just made a distinction that American Indians operate completely different. I took nothing from your indigenous approach to things.
You speak for all American Indians?
I speak for quite a few of them. Quite a few of them. I can actually say that politically. Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
A few, quite a few.
Quite a few. Quite a few different clans that are forming nations, that will be able to form nations, political strategies. Yes, indeed.
But you don't speak for all of them. You don't speak for the Navajo. You don't speak for the Hopi.
I didn't say the Navajo, and I wasn't specific. I just said that I speak for a number of American Indians. That's what I said.
All right, we know.
Right? That's fine. What I am saying is your position.
The fact that you don't speak for all of them
is fine, and you're going to cut me off, or you're going to let me finish. Your position on being indigenous is fine, but for the American Indians, there's a different way that it has to be done. That's not how it's done, and which is perfectly fine if you don't have any qualms with the government itself, and you have a government-to-government relationship. That's wonderful. But the American Indians, what we are doing in terms of the redress of grievances, the issues of ethnocide and genocide, the nano-torts, the micro-torts, and the macro-torts as a whole, just for being misclassified. There are many different places that have to be compartmentalized, areas in which we definitely have to insert ourselves politically. Your race is your political status. And in the United States, they have a specific amount of races, right? There's Asian, American Indian, there's Black, there's white, which is also North African, and then you have, I believe it's, you have Alaskan Native mixed in with the American Indian as well. Now, with that being said, everybody's political affiliation, the American Indian has never had representatives, right? Native Americans do. And what they have has nothing to do with the American Indian. Everybody can go back for that. Because the matter is, once the American Indian is in their position politically and civically, then we get to question who these other people are. Right? So there's no need. I always call it shadow boxing when people can't hit the target. And everybody doesn't have a right to the 1866 treaty. Let's just say that. Because the real anomaly is the fact that they even have freedmen. Why do they have freedmen if they made a distinction in Article 3 where they say with Africans, how long they have to go, how long they have to be in the area, and that the money was going to stop if they weren't removed in X amount of time. Article 4 is for the misclassified Negro, right, who is also the Indian, that they were to be called Indian and nothing else, and never to be questioned again. So with that being said, that is specific to those people in that nation prior to the Dawes Rolls. So in addition to people being on the Dawes Rolls, where were they before that? There's many different things that people have to be very clear and specific in their timeline. Right? Because this is where you have these vague holes and they go in these different vague areas that will not help people thrive politically or civically for that matter.
Okay. So, again, like I said, the term American Indian can be applied to people who are Navajo, people who are Hopi, people who may be in your tribe. So no one on this line is speaking for all American Indians. You're speaking for your particular political objective or several clans that you might have confederations with. I don't know. But I do know I'm not speaking for all American Indians or indigenous people when I'm speaking. I'm speaking for my government. And so that's all I can do. And when I speak for my government, I'm going to speak for it unless I have some type of compact or agreement to speak for other people. I think when we broad stroke and we start speaking for other people and telling somebody what they are and what they're not,
then that becomes a problem. As far as the racial classifications, those are voluntary inputs onto documents. They have no legal ramification whatsoever, except to the point where you start entering into contract from those jurisdictions. There's a difference. So filling out a Social Security form and saying, I'm this, I'm that, they tell you on the form it's voluntary. But when you start dealing with contract from a jurisdiction, it's a different thing. And so all I'm saying is everybody on this line who is in any type of American Indian or indigenous capacity and you're in a tribe, put your tribe together, make them effective, build your institutions, and let's develop some type of strategies that we could possibly put together for the greater good of all people. But nitpicking with someone's particular jurisdiction for what sounds like a massive miseducation on international law and self-identification is not going to take anybody anywhere. You know, anybody on this line can research or just ask and see what we are doing. We employ people, we feed families, and have been doing so for over 15 years. So I'm not disappointed in what we're doing, and we're going to keep improving. And the people who want to ally with us will ally with us because there's a bigger picture. I'm not going to nitpick about how somebody forms their tribe, though, because it sounds like a petty-ass nigga argument that begins to start that takes or devolves us away from the bigger objective. The bigger objective is what Sharif was talking about, political power. What Ishmael was talking about, how we're going to organize and go into Congress and get these things done. The smaller issues are, if you don't like how ARNA is formed or anything about it, let's have a dialogue about it in private, though. I don't think this is the forum that I would have those kind of things because it misdirects the energy of why we're here. We're here to stand up for American Indians, indigenous people, etc., to figure out, what directions, what can we do together to bring about some good. I don't know about some of y'all jurisdictions and how y'all operate. And the only reason I would be interested is to add input or to learn something so we could improve our jurisdiction. So,
Brother Sharif,
one thing I can say. One thing I can say is that what is an imperative that everybody does their genealogy because we're not all the same people. So when it comes down to people identifying themselves and thinking that we're just supposed to be unified as some monolithic umbrella, that is absolutely not true, especially if they are bypassing their bloodline relatives, which tie back to the land that people are saying that they want back or that they'd like to have. Some land is actually held in trust under these Indian tribal names, individual Indian allotments as well that were off reservation or not a part of the tribe, but still were entitled to the allotments as well. So I wouldn't say that there's a we thing when there's a bunch of individual things that have to be taken care of before we can even apply those things. And politically, that's something that people can walk and chew bubblegum. Being able to create a super PAC, being able to actually establish a political party. That's probably the least of the worries, but I definitely wouldn't contact Maxine Waters unless they're going to start telling the truth about who they are and some of the things that we're discussing. It's no need for the Black, Puerto Rican, Asian.
All right. So anyways, what I'm saying is, sister wanted to say something. Go ahead, sis.
Yes, I would like to speak. Chief, I hope you don't mind. This is Nakina Xi Amaru. I would like to speak on behalf of me representing as a national of ARNA because Absolutely. I think a lot of times I think what I'm hearing from the conversation is a lot of back and forth when it comes to a welfare mentality on getting back this, what we are owed, what we're that. And I think we miss the mark when it comes to understanding honor is about us self-repairing damage. So it's not really set on just getting back what we've lost. It's more so building towards the future. That's why I'm a national. That's why my family's a national. And that's why we represent the government, because it's about progress, not just looking backwards, which, yes, we've all been damaged. There's a lot that has happened to us as a people, but when it comes to us as a government, we're looking towards the future because we still have a lot of opportunities at bay, but a lot of people are stuck in the past. And I think when we speak on nationality and all these things, honor is all about just linking us so that we can move forward and stop having backwards conversation because it's not moving us to anywhere when it really comes down to getting strategically prepared to take positions in office and whatnot. So I just wanted to speak on that. I mean, again, it's, everyone has their point of view, which is fine. But I think we need to focus more so on how do we get ahead as a people. And I understand someone said, it's not about unity, it's not about this. But yes, it is. Because at the end of the day, it's about us as a people. First off, you have to fix your own home. That's one. Because if you're out here not preparing yourself, then you can't speak for the community. So that's one thing I learned becoming a national. I learned that I had to take care of my family, my responsibility before I represent anything or be able to speak on behalf of the community. So if you're not getting yourself together, honor is about family. So if you're not getting your family together, getting your home together, then there's no conversation that can be had because the world is run by families. And if you're not pushing that agenda, then you're not pushing any agenda. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to kind of reset the room. This is a very good conversation that we're having. And of course, everyone that speaks, what you have to say is definitely valuable, but we want to make sure that we keep the agenda, which is to find solutions and how we can help in this situation. So I just wanted to restate that for everyone in the room so that we can work towards solutions, but we also still want to have a real conversation and talk about the hard stuff as well. Everyone will be able to get a chance to speak. It works best, especially for people who are in the room, who are trying to listen at the bottom, if we don't talk over each other. Also, if we're having a conversation and it's a trigger or something, just take some deep breaths before you talk, because we want to make sure everybody in the room can hear the conversation, can take notes, and do whatever they need to do to get something from this conversation. So I'll end with that.
I like to see. I'll just, my real quick question. This is Ken with the Amaru. Because this is important. I didn't want to miss this before, anything ended. But peace, God, Dr. Ali. I just want to say that was an excellent breakdown of what how to formulate government and what we're doing. But also the institution building, I think, is a major piece that many of our people are missing in the conversation of indigenous government. And kudos on that, of course. But there's a conversation that's been had on the term U.S. being applied to U.S. national versus, U.S. citizen or 14th Amendment second class, which I think, there's a lot of confusion on right now. And the Snyder Act, as well as even using the term Indian. I've heard on a previous conversation where you say using the term Indian, you're a part of the U.S. corporation. I just want to see if you had anything to build on that, on the U.S. Dual citizenship motion. I know you broke that down on a video the other day, but I think there were some peeps on here that I think we're having some issues grasping what it means to be a U.S. national and still be a part of your tribal government and holding your indigenous jurisdiction at the same time. So if you can just break that down and lighten, it'd be much appreciated.
That question is for me, right?
Correct. Correct.
Okay. It's pretty simple. I mean, a U.S. national is someone who has allegiance to the government of the United States. A good example is before the end of the Civil War, the soldiers who fought in allegiance with the North, or what we call them the North, they were considered U.S. nationals, but there had not been anything passed to make them citizens. So some of them were, had tribal lineage, some of them didn't, but they were considered nationals because they had an allegiance to the government. And that would be via, the Constitution and, the laws, etc. So there are some nationals currently who are nationals but non-citizens. Now, how the U.S. law perceives that is people who say live in Puerto Rico, who don't have elective capacity to elect governors and other people, they're a U.S. territory. So now those people are considered nationals because they're under U.S. jurisdiction, but they're in a territory. So they're not considered citizens. So that's one example. Then you have the original citizenship under the Constitution
came for peoples of European descent who were terming themselves as white. You can look up white person. You can look up free white person. The free white person includes in that North Africans. And at the time that the statute was written, they had their idea of what a North African was. It was not a sub-Saharan African. So that's up for debate. That's up for discussion. But the basics of it is that white people were citizens here. Then you had the 14th Amendment. It came about, and it was supposed to give citizenship to people who had been discriminated against, who didn't get it. And then you had the Snyder Act. The Snyder Act was specifically for Aboriginal tribes. In its context, it mentions that Aboriginal tribes and people who are part of Aboriginal tribes who could be citizens, with the caveat that their tribal rights and property would be preserved. So in our jurisdiction, we leave it up to the people who are present to make that declaration, because the declaration is not a mandatory declaration. It's not an act as an act of Congress. It could be actually be abrogated or changed by some other law. But presently it stands, so we give the people the right to say, okay, if you want to be the mayor of your city, you have to be a citizen in order to be the mayor. So if you're going to be a citizen, do so in your Aboriginal capacity, not as a group of people who had a citizenship forced upon them, if you understand what I'm saying. So it's pretty simple. The Snyder Act is up for anybody's reading and looking at. We leave that designation up to the nationals in ARNA to make that designation for themselves. Our job is to handle our jurisdiction when someone comes to us. And so that's how we operate it, It's pretty, straightforward. We got 3 types of citizenship: Snyder Act, 14th Amendment, and the original citizenship clause of the United States of America. You're either one of those 3.
Appreciate that, God. That was broken down very well. Absolutely.
I just have a question before we get to the next part. I just had a question about, historically, there was a merging of groups like patriot groups that ended up being woven into like Moorish history, as well as a lot of the histories of what's being promoted today. And we do see that in the media that's taking place. It looks to me like it took a big curve, as far as when media started getting more access to it, like computers and things. But where do y'all think things kind of went wrong as far as the merging of these 2 ideologies and the dilemma that we happen to see in the media today, Brother Sharif or Chief Ali?
Sharif, you want to go first, so I can just go quickly, because mine is pretty quick.
Dr. Ali, before you go, 1 second, this is Yashika. So I'm getting a couple of messages from the audience, and so people are saying, when you guys are explaining stuff, if you can, break it down as to like as much as layman's terms as possible, because some people say it's flying over their head, but they are here trying to take in the information. So I just wanted to give that feedback. That's all.
Okay. Mine is pretty simple. I think that Prophet Noble Drew Ali set up a jurisdiction. He set up the Moorish Science Temple of America. And I think that one of the things that is a dishonorable thing is when you take someone else's founding, twist it for your particular agenda, and then you drag their name. So regardless of, whether I agree wholeheartedly with everything the Prophet said, he set up a jurisdiction for Moorish Americans. And so people who come later and they have their ideas about how they want to do things, they should honor the man and not, if they're going to do something, do it in a way that it doesn't bring harm to the founders. It's the same thing with the Nation of Islam. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad set up a jurisdiction, and then Mr. Farrakhan came and he had his own ideas. That should be said. These are your ideas. These are not the messenger's ideas. So I think that where the whole sovereign citizen thing went wrong is they decided to make actions to adopt things from the militia groups and the white sovereign citizen movement, but they brought the Moors' name in with it, and now you're injuring your brother and sister for your own, purposes. And I think that that's a problem. If you're going to be a Moorish American, you should advocate what the Prophet advocated, pretty much. If there's adjustments that the group makes, let the group make it as a group, so that the body is clear on the direction. But when you start to go, the Great Seal and a million different other entities that begin to use the prophet's name, and I'm going to just say this, straight, and push your dirty religion or your tactics, then it becomes a problem. A lot of these things that these sovereign citizen people made up is legal mumbo jumbo. I know because I used to be involved in it when I was studying, and I did these things, and we got to try to discharge a debt, and the stuff is chaotic once you start to study more and mature. I think that's a big problem, and I think people should keep respect for Noble Drew Ali and what he founded. That's not happening now, and it's creating a catastrophe, and it's what some of the Europeans want, because now they get to say you're anti-government, you're this, and create a smear campaign on you when, there are so many noble brothers who are Moors who are, continue to try to carry out the work that the Prophet started.
Thank you, man. Peace. First, I want to give honor to what Dr. Xi Ali just said. One of our big problems, and I'm talking about as our people overall, regardless of organization, regardless of ideology, regardless of direction, we don't know how to work with each other. And unity does not necessarily mean uniformity. You know what I mean? And, even Prophet Noble Drew Ali, when he formed the Moorish Science Temple of America, he didn't expect every melanated person in America to join the organization. And that's just the truth. Now, mind you, there's a lot of people in our organization that think that. That's wrong. It's erroneous. It's one organization, and I'll quote Noble Drew Ali on this before I go further. He said this organization is part of the great program to uplift fallen humanity. He didn't say it was the program. He said it's part of it. You see what I'm saying? So that's important. Now, back on this whole thing with the sovereignty demonstration. Dr. Xi Ali spoke to it. I bear witness because, we're especially in the area in the East Coast, New York, whatever, we've been around quite a while. You know what I'm saying? So I can bear witness to him being a part of that stuff back in the day, as was myself and my brother Ishmael. We absolutely we pioneered it in upstate New York. And I said this before on a previous Clubhouse. I'll say it again. We were doing this in the summer of 1991. There was no Facebook. There was no social media. There wasn't no internet. If you were doing it, you really had to be outside with it. You know what I mean? And the advantage we had at those times is that law enforcement and the justice system were caught with their pants down. It wasn't that we were right all the time. It was that we were just ahead of them. And that's what it was. That's not the case now. It's definitely not the case now. And post 9/11, this stuff's going to land you in Guantanamo Bay. And as Brother Xi Ali, Dr. Xi Ali spoke to, we have to learn to, we got to learn, I'll just quote the prophet, we got to learn to love instead of hate, man. We got to learn to love each other. Other national groups love each other on sight. They don't got to personally know each other. You see what I'm saying? They love each other on sight, man. And we have to learn that. We lost that. You see what I'm saying? And so, but back on the whole sovereign demonstration, that ideology infiltrated the Moorish movement. So much so that in 2021, people believe that to be a part of the original Moorish movement when it was not. That stuff came from European racist neo-Confederates.
Correct. Yep.
That if they had their way today, we'd be back in physical chains tomorrow. And that's just the truth. That's just the truth.
Coalition.
I'll leave it at that. Peace.
I think it's perfect what you said, Sharif. It's about coalition building. I think that we kind of forget sometimes when we look at, what Dr. Ali said and what Phoenix said, they're both saying the same thing because things have to be done in duality. Because both parts of the movement are very important. We have to be structured and be able to maneuver
as a melanated group of people indigenously as a whole, but then we also have to be able to preserve the truth of the lineages so that the history does not get erased and that we can put things back that have been broken. And at the same time, we have to learn to coalition build around the political strategy and not lose sight of the overall goal, but still be able to bring remedy to the injury that we faced.
Yes, that's a very valid point also. And I think a major part of nationality is diplomacy. So you have to be able to apply that to your sisters and your brothers. Or else that's one of the founding, things of what it takes to really have a tribe or nation function properly. So that's a very good point you make.
Peace, Ish. Can I speak to that for a hot second?
Of course, yes, sir.
All right, the whole idea of nationality, I want to explain it from the perspective of the Moorish Science Temple of America, right? There was a sister on earlier that was speaking about genetics and speaking about ethnohistory and speaking about, DNA and all of this. That's beautiful work. That is beautiful work, and it's necessary work. But what I'd like for everybody to consider really quick, I'll use this example. Let's take Italians. You have Sicilian, Calabrese, Neapolitan. You have a number of different ethnic and tribal groups under the umbrella of the national identifier Italian. You see what I'm saying? That is how we understand nationality. It doesn't exclude or disqualify tribalism or ethnicity. It is a unification factor. Peace.
That's beautiful.
I like that.
Very good point. Thank you. Did somebody have a question? I'm sorry.
I would like to add to that. So the thing is, the chief, Dr. Ali, he has done basically what you guys are still trying to talk about. No offense. The thing is, the foundation of what the Aboriginal Republic of North America, also known as the Xi Amaru tribal government, is about is already having that foundation for us as a people to build on. It just takes us deciding to put in the work for it. But everything you guys are talking about already exists.
Does it exist for American
and
Indians?
Not just with ARNA. Not just with ARNA.
Is it for American Indians as a whole, the misclassified, or just indigenous Chi people?
It's for all people. We have doctors and scientists doing way more for Black genetics than any other tribe that I've been hearing about. We're reversing things that other people aren't doing. We're healing people. We're open to sharing and healing others, even not in our government. And even our scientists, our doctors, our lawyers, they're providing remedy nationwide, people in and outside of the tribe.
But it is falling under one nationality as a... So even when it comes to being a Xi Amaru or a part of the lineage, it's all about connect. Yes, you may be a part of or misnomered group of other known Cherokee, whatever the case may be, lineage, but the goal is we're researching to connect you back to the original. So that's the background check that we're doing. We're looking for you to be connected as a Xi Amaru so you can go about lawfully being tied to our tribe. That's the whole point when it comes down to it. We're not looking for you to be any other. That's not what we're searching for. We're searching to see if our people have just solely and just linguineous rights, which means they have right by land and they have right by bloodline. So that's what we're connecting it to. That's it.
I think Sharif answered that question with the principle that he laid out. He listed different types of people who are under the banner of Italian, and they never lost their tribal identity. Sicilians are still Sicilians, and Neapolitans are still Neapolitans. So when you look at our government, like I said, my lineage is Choctaw. I'm not divorcing myself from Choctaw lineage to become a part of the Xi Amaru. I'm actually accelerating it. We have other people that, are, these other names that we use, Cherokee, Seminole, different tribal classifications. And so that doesn't stop us from coming together to operate what we operate. And that's just our technique. And ARNA, even though, we do what we do,
there are other groups who have been doing it. You got the Mexican Empire. You got a lot of different groups out here that have been operating. And so I'm not gonna act like I didn't study from great people who came before me, the Empress. I'm not going to act like that because, anybody who was around in the 90s who was in Philly would know I was with Brother Median and we were doing those things. The point is we all have something that's valuable to one another. And so the conversation is really sharing. How many people of these jurisdictions know how to set up their own 7 classifications of different types of businesses to keep the money circulating in their government? We can have a jurist come and teach all of you those particular things, and I'm pretty sure y'all got things that y'all can share with us. That's what we should be doing, resource sharing, so we can build up our momentum to do what we're doing. And that what we're doing is we're helping our people regain their sovereignty for real, in the process.
Yeah, I just want to say if someone does have questions, I know Phoenix, you were saying something. Is there anything else you wanted to say? Because you were getting ready to say something. I see you changed your PTR. So if you have a question, please definitely ask your question.
You know what? I'm just going to listen for now. I think the temperature got a little above normal for whatever reason. And I'm going to just sit in the back for a minute.
Okay, if you want to say something, just let me know because we still need to have a hard conversation. So
I know, but I was cut off, so I need to calm down. I react. I don't react normal to that, to being disrespected.
Okay.
Especially when it gets ignored. I'm just going to sit back and count to 10.
Okay.
And let me say something to the sister. If I have said anything to offend you, I apologize. We're all passionate about this truth. I'm just meeting you, and I don't want to offend you on the first time that I'm meeting you, even if we have difference of thoughts. I have nothing against you, sister. And if you're here, that means you are concerned about your family lineage and your people. And so I commend you for being present. And I apologize if I've said anything to offend you or any other brothers and sisters on here. I didn't come to offend anybody on this line because we really in my mind, we're on the same team.
Yeah, and Phoenix, also check your DM on Instagram.
Okay, beloved.
Go ahead, DJ.
So my question is to Dr. Ali. Have you or your government been able to establish any treaties with any other tribal entities?
Yes, we have several of them over the 15-year period, and we still have them standing. I wouldn't call, and let me put a caveat out there. I would not call them treaties.
Chief, what's a caveat?
A caveat is, I'm going to say, I'm warning you with the use of my language. Yeah, disclaimer, because when you say a treaty, some of the entities that we were making what we call treaties are dissolved. If anybody remembers, in Harlem, we had a sit down. I think this was this might have been 2010. But we sat with each other and we agreed to make treaties, and some of us followed up on that. Aline Bey was there. People from Marrakesh were there. Other people were there. But we made some agreements, and some of those entities are not operating in the same capacity or not operating at all. And this is domestic. One of the things that we did do is, I don't know if Brother Truth Ali is on here, but in 2010, we wrote to 25 countries. This is international at the time. And it wasn't for recognition. It was to notify them of what we were doing. And the idea, Libya was one of them. The idea was to build some momentum over time so that when we did come back to them, we could make some treaties. I still have conversations with some of these leaders or their sons. And all I'm saying to our people is this, and to answer your question. So yes, we have made treaties. We have made contracts with other groups, agreements, consolidations. But I think that the greatest thing that we can do is solve our internal interactions and make them more powerful so that when we do go to African nations and Caribbean nations, we're a bit stronger. Right now, we're weak as far as factor. And so we discontinued writing those people over the last 5 years because, we got a lot of internal work to do.
So no treaties on North America. No treaties. That's what he was asking. So no treaties. I know why he was asking you that specifically.
I can't hear what you're saying, brother. Say it again.
I say so. No actual treaties have been signed with no North American, American Indian nations. Y'all don't have no treaties with no American Indian nations.
We have one that's with the Washita, but
that's not a real nation.
You can't say that. Do that.
Come on, man. Like we already know that the
that's
Empress,
a federal crime.
We know that the Empress used a Spanish land grant to get the land back. We know that. Come on now.
Denationalization.
Hold on. Let me finish making my statement. We're talking about American Indian, bloodline Indian. Not nobody that used the Spanish land grant from some foreign European ancestors to get some land back.
All right, bro. Listen, I could go all day, and I'm not these people. Like, we got diplomatic.
Come on, man. You can just answer the question. We ain't got to go around all the way around the book. Just answer the question. Do y'all have any tribal? Do you have any?
I'm a grown man.
Hold on.
I'm gonna back out.
No. Ali, don't go nowhere. Nah, yeah, we ain't gonna do it like that.
Yeah, we definitely want to have some good energy in here. We can talk about it, but we want to make sure everybody can hear. We got to remember that. Big, I'm gonna mute you for a second because it's kickback. We just have to remember that there are people in the audience trying to hear, so we can't talk over each other. We could just try very hard, with the self-control so that everyone can hear, because it just sounds like confusion when two people are talking at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, let me finish what I'm saying. The only thing I'm saying is
one second, Chief. I want to throw this out there.
Okay, my bad.
Because at the end of the day, man, I just wanted to, we sit down, man. We wanted to come up and have a platform where we can all bring, see what we bring to the table and see what exactly can work for us. And so, man, I just don't want to miss that point in this whole conversation while we got all these brilliant minds together. We want to actually be able to leave out this conversation with something. And the people that's listening as well, that for the first time hearing this, and, a lot of the people who are coming in contact with knowing this information and actually knowing that this they land. And so we really want to try to help as many people as we can out this conversation and not miss the point that we do want to get something out of it, something positive out of this conversation.
Yeah, we don't want to sabotage anything. So let's just try our best.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it peacefully. I'm not slow, all right? I know when there's the energy of disqualification present as opposed to a dialogue. And there's a heavy energy of disqualification coming from a few of the speakers. I don't know these people. I'm just meeting them. And so I answered the question, and they said what they said, but I'm a grown man.
I didn't hear you. I never heard you answer the question, to be honest with you. Neither did I.
Okay, let me go back. I said we had a meeting in 2010 in Harlem. I said there were people from various groups who were there. I mentioned the Washita and us making a literal treaty with the Washita. It was disqualified because for some reason some people might not agree that that's a real American Indian, tribal, indigenous government. So what I'm going to say, and that's fine. That's fine, with what they're saying. I don't depend on treaties to operate what we do in ARNA. At this point, I don't. In the future, that will become more important when we get more power. But I did answer the question. But all I'm saying is I'm going to elect to let another ARNA member speak because at the end of the day, I am a man, a whole man. And when I feel that energy coming, it's unproductive. And so there's no even reason for me to continue the dialogue if these people are going to be present, because every
all right, man, well, you ain't got a dialogue
to this particular energy.
Like, you ain't got a dialogue no more than my nigga. Like, all right, we good.
So we know that the only treaty is with Washita.
Chill out. We good. You ain't got a dialogue no more. We good. We good. Fuck it. Nigga, fuck it.
Hold on.
You ain't got a dialogue.
Hold on.
My nigga.
Why is it so emotional?
No, fuck that, nigga. What?
Nigga, nobody was really bringing that energy to you, but since you feel like that way, I'm gonna bring it to you. Nigga, you ain't gotta stop.
Hold on, man.
Man, fuck up.
You would do it over the internet.
Man, I'm in Atlanta.
Hold on. Because see, you gotta understand, we got people in the audience. Like, we gotta stop this. Like, come on now, you really gotta stop this. Because we got people in the audience trying to learn. So we gotta put this in. We can have a conversation. We can ask the questions. We can get the answers. But we gotta stop all this emotional stuff right now, because there's other people who don't know as much that are trying to get the information. Now, if you feel that something is being said that is not right, you got the right to ask, and then we can get an answer. But we got to keep it nice and organized and logical for it to be productive.
Can I also ask, just for the room, are we allowing discourse? Because I do want to hear the opposition to what Dr. Amaru is saying. I don't just want this to make this a one-sided argument, because some of us do not agree with the Moorish ideology or Moors in totality. So I would love to hear them answer certain questions and not make it a threat to their manhood or anything like that. You know, I don't think it has to get that deep, because a lot of us do not agree with what the Moors are doing, just to be honest. So I would like to hear clarification on what did happen with that, with the woman that did with the Washitas and that whole situation.
And let's keep it really unemotional. It needs to stay unemotional. If you can't get your emotions together, just don't speak. Because we again, this is a learning situation. That the club is called Truth and Higher Learning. We're supposed to have these hard conversations in here. That's the whole purpose.
Yeah, can I say something when everybody free? Yeah, so with this topic, man, this is going to be a real touchy topic because it deals with the law and certain aspects or facets of the law. So we all have to really understand that there's different levels to operate on these lands if that's what you want to do. And that's what we're running into, just like before with Miss Akamat, okay? This is the same type of stuff. We don't need to even argue about it, because if that's how somebody wants to operate, then we just going to have to let people do that. Just like my brother next to me, Jesse. Jesse, aren't you operating through ecclesiastical?
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a combination of ways that we're operating. But the thing is, I think the major issue, and I'm not going to be the dead horse in terms of unity. I mean, we know that's there. But I think that really the major issue with our people is that we don't understand the system. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You first have to understand there are two territorial jurisdictions that's incorporated into the Constitution. You know, you had the Articles of Confederation, which is 1777. That's the first territory. Then after that, you had the Northwest Ordinance, which is the second territory. Those two jurisdictions were both incorporated into the Constitution via Article 6, Clause 1 and 2. Those two territorial jurisdictions are Article 4, Section 3, Clause 1, which is public federalism, which is the Republican form of government, states in the Union. And then you have Article 4, Section 3, Clause 2, which is private federalism, which is the several states. So I keep saying the most important article in the Constitution is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3. Congress to regulate commerce with foreign nations amongst the several states and with the Indian tribes. The two most important words in the context that are being used is with and amongst. With is a partnership. Basically, you're sovereign, I'm sovereign, you have the autonomy, I have the autonomy. Amongst means that you are subordinate to someone. So we have to understand the system and how it's, how it operates. And I think once we get a grasp of the system itself, then all the issues and things that we're having as a collective group of people will disappear. But until that happens, it doesn't really matter. I'll just say this here. In order for you to really get a grasp on government and how to position yourself, you have to first, again, understand the system, but your position in the system. How are you going to go at the system and how you're going to operate within the system? And I think the problem that I see over and over with Moors and people from many different groups is that they're trying to mix common law with Roman civil law, and you can't do that. It's two separate systems. The American Indian exists under the first territorial jurisdiction, which is the Articles of Confederation, the free inhabitants. in the several states, there is no American Indian. There's only 4 races or group. And if you don't believe me, go and get Smith's Geography. That book was in 1836, where they're telling you the 5 races of man. But again, when you look at the Civil War, you'll see where the North was trying to bring in democracy. They was trying to bring in Roman civil law, which is international law, also known as the Law of Nations. And then the South was trying to hold true to the principles of the Articles of Confederation, which you can plainly see because each of those states had their own money, whereas all the states in the North was rocking the greenback. So we have to really understand the system. And I think once we do that, I think it'll solve all the problems. Again, if you're talking about the first territorial jurisdiction, you got a land patent. If you're talking about the several states, then you have a warranty deed. A lot of the lynchings and things that were taking place back in the day was because of the land patents. The banks wanted the land patents to put into the public trust so they can create the warranty deeds for the several states. So this whole system was shifting from more of a common law, English common law based system over into Roman civil law, which is what the whole world is on, which is family of nations law, that type of stuff. So I think once we understand that, we'll be fine. In terms of the several states, you have to look at the type of corporations that are there. You have a chartered corporation, you have an unchartered corporation, and you have a trust. An unchartered corporation is under Congress. So everybody that has a Social Security number, you are under Congress. It is Congress that determines your privileges and immunities. It is Congress that's using private commercial law to dictate public policy. That's a fact. You are using their federal franchise to do business here. You also have a chartered corporation, meaning you get your articles of incorporation from your Secretary of State, which is your LLC, C Corp, sole proprietors, nonprofit organizations. That comes from the Secretary of State. Or you could get a Section 17, which is a federal chartered corporation.
Excuse me.
Yes.
We are part of the Xi Amaru tribe. We get our documents, our business documents from our government. So that does not apply.
Again, you're missing the point.
Treaties. Where does treaties come in? Because I'm familiar with stories like Abdul Rahman ibn Suri and the Sundry Moors Act, were Muslim treaties that were...
Hold on, Malik. Hold on 1 second, because Jesse was still finishing. And first he's going to respond to Nakina, and then you can go after him. Finish, Jesse.
Okay. Again, I'm explaining to you the different sectors in the several states. That's what I'm explaining to you. Your chartered corporation, your unchartered corporation, and your trust, right? That's in the several states. Now, you have, if you create your documents or you're trying to operate within these states in the union, then, again, how are you operating? Are you saying that you are a regular Indian tribal government, or are you saying that you're federally recognized? Because a federally recognized Indian tribal government...
No, we don't say we're recognized by the federal government, because the thing is, we confuse this word recognition as needing permission to operate. We as nationals do not need the federal government to co-sign. As the chief stated before, he said that we provided notice that we were about to operate. I think the primary problem when it comes to our people is this sense of needing permission from another group of people, not understanding international law. You don't need permission.
Territorial jurisdictions. This is how you do your business.
Hold on. So what ended up happening? What happened? Something happened to Jesse's mic, and then she started talking. So his was actually interrupted, not by her, but Jesse, I think your service or something went out.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so here's what I'm saying. How you do your business is how you do your business. What I'm saying is, for everybody in this room, you need to understand there's 2 systems here. The 2 seals are on the back of the dollar bill. One represents the first jurisdiction. The other one represents the second jurisdiction.
Uh-oh.
Hey, Jesse, come back in, bro.
Oh, what was that?
He's back. He's back down.
Hey,
all right.
Jesse, go
Hold on. Everybody go on mute because there's some static or something going on.
It's somebody's mic.
Okay, hold on. Nikina, we got it. All right. We got a lot of moderators up here. Thanks, though. Jesse, are you there?
Me, Yashika. That was me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shane. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Jesse, you there? He might be out. All right, so whoever was talking, they can go next.
Yeah, so I just wanted to just put this out here real quick. Being a part of ARNA, the Xi Amaru lineage, Xi Amaru tribe, I just want to state I'm currently partnered running the Druid Society of our region here in our jurisdiction, and that goes with the spiritual ministry down here and the defense ministry of my particular region. Speaking on behalf of those, just in general, I think one of the important questions I think I want to pose to everyone here is who is operating an institution or running any kind of organization with their indigenous government or what have you that is willing to partner up with what we're doing and come to a better end, a better mutual end for indigenous nations here in North America. Is anybody doing anything or operating any institutions or ministries or levels of government that are willing to partner up, have a discussion after this, and put some things together? Because I think that's the real crux of what we're trying to put together here. So that's my question I'm posing to speakers, if that's the case.
I think that's really important because I think that, yes, by us being able to acknowledge one another in proper person, I think that's how you actually form the confederations that are necessary as a unified body. The more that we can unify as equals at the table, that's how things get done. We're making avenues right now in certain cities, in certain positions, in order to make sure that actual zones can be established. And I think it'll be for the betterment of us as a whole. So, yeah, I'm with it. First Tribe Aboriginal, we with it.
Awesome. Like anybody that's interested, let's build after this. Follow me. Let's put some context. State if you're interested in building, because that's what we're doing here. I love to see other institutions or jurisdictions to build with, but honestly, most of our interactions is one-sided. Usually, it's ARNA providing services or providing, what have you, to nationals or non-nationals. So. That's why I'm like, if y'all are doing something, let's build. You know what I mean? Like, let's all the history talk is nice, but we dealing with what we're dealing with right now, and the operations will prove who is actually in a good position. I don't even want to say a better position, but a good position to operate and build for the lineage of indigenous peoples here in North America. So, if you're about that life, let it be known. You know what I mean? The history's good. You know what I mean? I'm always down for the history. All the technicalities, but we're doing what we're doing in real time, and we're doing it all across the nation and across, and overseas as well. Like, you heard, Xi Ali build on that. So, if you're actually doing something, let's build. You know what I mean? We got people all over the nation. Let's put something together.
Peace. For clarity, earlier, that was kind of the point I was getting to with the treaties, because, my personal organization, I have a federal company, I have tribal dealings, tribal government, all these other things, and I have international contracts with other countries and things like that. So I'm always looking for other organizations to build with. On top of, I was mainly getting into it because as long as we operate underneath the premise of the rights of indigenous people, you can be recognized by another indigenous person, and that's really all we need is to recognize one another. So I'm down to build. I'm down to put my organization up. So peace.
Excellent, God. Glad to hear.
Ken, I actually came up to ask Ali a question about that. I wasn't in here earlier. I have a small group that just started, and we're actually looking at some other groups that purchase land in the Georgia area, and we're going to do the same thing. We want to provide an area kind of like what you guys are talking about where we can build for ourselves. So we're definitely down to build. And I just want to ask Ali if he's still here. As far as that goes, if you're doing like Ashley Scott has done or Farouk Hunter, if you're getting land for yourself and your people, how do you see the laws here with respect to that? Would you implement that into what you had going on, or would you go a different route?
Was that to me?
It's to Dr. Ali. To Dr. Ali.
Okay.
Oh, peace, family. Yes, absolutely. I'm working with brother Julian George now. That's Chef Aki's husband. We have 38 acres here, and what we're doing now is getting what's called a farm ID. The farm ID will bring people in that will build hoop houses for free, and we just kind of taking that model, and so we can spread it to other tribes and businesses, so they can build hoop houses, which you can grow your food year round, and that helps with some of the resources. A lot of this has to do with how much finance we have available to invest in it. So to reduce costs of paying for those things ourselves, we're doing that. And there's several other nationals, Alabama, South Carolina, a few places that also are doing some agricultural stuff. So yeah, I'm down with it. We put our land under trust. And the other thing that we do is if there's a local government near, we have a plan to kind of invade their city council so they can pass legislation to protect us as tribal peoples in those local jurisdictions. So that's how we're operating right now with the whole land situation. Our primary goal with the land is agriculture, and then if there's a situation where there's an opportunity for resort type of activity, then we implement those things too. So we got a few projects, but I'm experienced. I've been farming in Georgia for a few years. Me and brother Wansu farm right on Old National Highway. If anybody is familiar with the area, the store is closed right now, but that's another purchase that we got to make. But I'm down. I'm familiar with what to do on the local level as far as what entities to put the land under to protect it, to take away taxes and do those things. And I'm willing to share the information with anybody that is, on that same page.
Hey, that's what's up, man. I just followed you and this other brother. I'm familiar with which I was talking about earlier with the 9-8 number and all that good stuff. So I understood what that was. So I'm in agreement with you. It's just that not everybody that I deal with or that we dealing with has knowledge of that. So I think like our number one obstacle that I see, like somebody said earlier, I think it was Jesse, is the ignorance. We was talking about the difference between public and private, and us not knowing the difference and then conflating the two, and then you coming to speak to somebody about that and you're not exactly sure, how that works. I was just listening to what were you guys just talking about? Recognized and noticed. It's almost the same thing. It's not both of them are you doing that on your own. You go to someone and say, I would like you to recognize me, and they get to choose, and you've chosen. It's not required, and then notice would be the same thing. So I think once we get knowledgeable of how law works and the actual principles and the maxims, then we can start to discuss these methodologies, because I think going back and forth about the methodologies without actually understanding the underlying principles is what we're running into. But I definitely want to discuss with you and DJ and whoever else. You guys are already building. We're looking to get some land in Georgia, and I'm looking at the different strategies like you were just talking about implementing. And that's not even one I thought about, but that's a great idea of still dealing with the local government. So I appreciate that, man. This is Westman too. Westman down at the bottom.
Gotcha.
Who in here has tax exempt land? I do.
We do.
All ARNA nationals.
Yeah, we got airship property, so supposed to.
Yeah.
Okay. So the thing is, I think more than anything, I feel like when we speak as a people...
I don't know if this is still there.
That's all right. Mama duty first. Yeah. You understand how that
right. To build, but she was reading my exact thoughts. What I was going to build on. If everyone in this room right now needs to understand, if you're making the claim of indigenous versus you are indigenous or what have you, and you're not utilizing land that you're buying in tribal indigenous jurisdiction, or buying land and putting it under tribal jurisdiction, you can do that. We assist with that service. I'm sure there may be other people that do, but ARNA, the jurors here, Nakeem, there's another one. We assist with helping our people claim back their land, but also putting it under the correct jurisdiction and making it tax exempt. So being tax exempt for life is a modality that you can use, whether you're a national or non-national. It's different benefits. You of course you increase benefits when you're a national with us, but just in general though, like the name of the game right now is real estate and land owning, and when we're doing that, we're having the conversations of buying the block and things of that nature. We need to understand that if you're doing that stuff, you need to understand that one, economically, it just benefits you way more. Two, you're putting. I'll say it like this: you're hurting white supremacy when you're putting it under your tribal jurisdiction, whether that's under a tribal business or whether you're encompassing yourself in our government to become a national and to become tax exempt through that modality. So that's just something that's very important. While we have all the people in the room, need to understand if you're not tax exempt and you don't got your stuff under tax exempt jurisdiction, that's a conversation you need to have. And if you don't know, the Shi Amaru is willing to assist with that. Absolutely.
Hey, I got a question for Chief Xi. What's up, everybody? Peace to the room. I'm glad the temperature came down because there's too many heavy hitters in here for all that. There's a lot of fresh minds in this down below. So I'm glad you guys, everybody was able to bring it down and get back to the real cause of this thing. So I just wanted to say peace to that. But to Dr. Xi, or Chief Xi, I'm sorry, excuse me. Earlier you were referencing a 1866 treaty. Is that correct, sir?
No, I didn't talk about the treaty. I think Ish
I was talking about I asked him about the 1866
Okay,
treaty.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, man.
No problem.
Ishmael, what treaty? I'm sorry. Then this question is to Ishmael, not Dr. Xi. What treaty was that you're referencing?
Yes, sir.
What treaty is it?
Yes, sir.
By name.
Okay,
that was my only question.
Oh, no problem. So you have 1866 treaties that were made. The purpose of it was because those who were enslaved by the Native Americans, they were basically.
No. I know about that. I just want to know which one you were. You said
I was talking about the 1866 Creek Treaty, the Creek Treaty of 1866 specifically.
The Creek Treaty of 1866.
Yes, and I was just trying to give context to other people who may not know what it was pertaining to.
I see. And the creek out of where?
There were the creeks in Oklahoma, but there were creeks that were coming from the traditional homelands, be it from Alabama, Florida, etc., Georgia. But it's for creeks in general.
10-4.
It can't be for creeks in general because it.
Come on, Phoenix. You broke up, Mom.
Hello, Phoenix? Okay. Well, I guess we'll come back to her.
Okay. Yeah, that was my question. And then I wanted to say something else, too. But it's not off subject. It's on subject. Kind of with the theme of what we've all been talking about here recently in these last few days, these last few weeks. Let's just stay in that theme, right? You know, Big, Shan, Sheikah. Y'all know the names of the people, L, Connor. Let's just stay in the theme of the other rooms we've been in, right? So if this is the ancient world, that would mean any and everything came from here first. So that would include this Moorish, all these laws and whatnot. And now that would include where they're from. That would include Spain, Hispaniola. That was Florida, right? And in accordance to what we've been reading, right? And all this, like we're finding out I was in the room today. We found out about that damn room in, there's 3 pyramids they just unearthed in Oregon. I was in a room about that. So we're finding out that this is actually the oldest land. So this is why when we hear these Moorish arguments, and these Moorish arguments are solid, but we give that credit to that landmass over there, and that Spain over there wasn't the Spain. It was this Spain. And the Moors are from the Islamic branch of Ishmael, right? And they come out of Al-Andalusia. That's the Andalusia in Georgia. You see what I'm saying? So we can't be, and that's how it makes sense. Now then we go with, man, what is this cat talking about, right? But then Shan, let's go with what you found out about the oldest obelisk in Central Park. Underneath it, in a time capsule, in a Mason deal, and all Shriners are 33-degree Masons, et cetera, et cetera. So, you can just throw that in there. The Shriners were the Fez and blah, blah, blah. So, you could just play with that all day. But either way, underneath Cleopatra's Needle in Central Park was the Constitution, the 1870 census, and the Declaration of Independence and some shit. Why would that be there? And then we're all starting to figure out this information. You see what I'm saying? So if we just kind of merge the two, it makes perfect sense. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks, Sewell. And so for everybody in the room, we definitely want to make sure that we're asking questions and we don't necessarily want to give any history lessons and stuff, just because people are in here to learn about how we can, come together or share this information. So we just want to stay on course of what we're talking about.
If this is Ken again, just wanted to mention this, and it kind of goes into similar to what I was saying earlier, but different route. If you're going to you're claiming indigenous or aboriginal or even conscious, and you don't have your own doctor institutions that you're going to, all you have is to go to, Europeans, Caucasians, whatever you want to call them, white folks, hospital, methods to heal yourself, knowing what they have and the history they have with Aboriginal people. I don't even want to call it crazy, but what I will say is you're talking to an institution that has our own doctors and operates specifically on Aboriginal bodies, as well as other people's bodies as well, but we specify on that because it's not highlighted the different biosystems that deal with, with our bodies, essentially. So, you follow me, follow Nakina, follow, of course, Dr. Ali, Shi Ali, for, getting into your own medical associations that's, like Mercedes said earlier, reversing everything from HIV, AIDS, cancer, uncurable STDs with receipts. With receipts is the main thing. Everybody says,
and we're about
you got receipts. Correct. We're not living in the past. The past is important, though, but when all you have is to build on the past, that becomes problematic, and it becomes reeling the momentum back. So we want to reel this thing forward. Like Nakina mentioned earlier, we want to move this stuff forward. So if you don't have your own doctors, you're losing. Point blank, period. Don't matter what the history is. Don't matter what jurisdiction you in. You're losing. So Aboriginal Medical Association .com, actually, aboriginalmedicalassociation.com. You want to follow that, and see what we're operating in that capacity. We've got doctors all around the nation, and you can get non-invasive bioscans from us that are accurate and not harmful to the body. So that's another thing our Aboriginal government, Indigenous government is operating. So follow us again for that.
I want to piggyback on that. And one of the main things would be, like we said, the institutions and stuff like that. And so if you don't have institutions like Ali has put together, especially with around all the talk and all the, about, who you are as a people really won't matter if you can't keep yourselves here in the future. And so having, first knowing that you're indigenous and then having a body politic to enforce those rights, and then going further, like Kenway and everybody was saying, having the institutions to build your community and effectively fight off people who aren't necessarily trying to, put you back into slavery, but to, commit genocide on you in ways that you aren't even aware of, and just having those areas of expertise, which we have here in the Shiamaru government.
Right, because if you dealing with the vaccine conversation, I don't want to get the whole room deleted or anything. I'll say jab, but if you're over there getting jabbed and you're calling yourself conscious, you're calling yourself, pushing like you're finding yourself in a problematic space. I can't even start with the problems that jab will give you in regards of the ingredients, the nanotechnology that's applied as well. And I'm proud to say that our medical institution is the only one that's managed to, through a client basis, remove the effects of the vaccine from the body. So that's a major breakthrough that needs to be understood. I mean, probably in the future it'll get way more recognition and the respect that it deserves. But if you know the level of issue that jab is going to give our people, and even non-Aboriginal people, it's to a whole nother level of sinister. So that's another reason why I'm saying, if you ain't got your own medical association that's dealing with, your bodies, your genetics, you need to figure something out immediately. You probably got the jab because your job told you, you know what I mean? Like, and you got to make your money. You know what I mean? Like, but that's cool. You know what I mean? You actually have a way, because before the Aboriginal Medical Association put that together, honestly, the black community was going to look like it was just going to wipe out. Like, then there was no coming back outside of the ones who knew better. But now there is an opening to be able to reverse that.
Yeah, Ken, and I want to add on what you're saying too. We at Indigenous of the North, we actually have students going to school, people who are becoming national, and they're demanding that, that they have to have some form of proof, all that stuff, to either get the vaccine, the jab or whatever. And the thing is, what we have in place is people have lawful ways to go about not even having to subscribe to that. And that's through what was created through our Aboriginal Medical Association, and it is basically a step to confirm that you are or would have an allergic reaction if you were to take these ingredients and put them into your body. So we are over here, like we said, pushing things forward.
I also want to take this moment to shout out a sister that I hold in very high regard. She's from Syracuse, New York. And Brother Sharif will know who she is, Dr. Jennifer Daniels. Dr. Daniels, she now lives in South America, but she's just a brilliant, holistic doctor. She did everything the right way as far as going to school, went to the top Ivy League school, got a degree from Harvard education. She opened up a clinic in the neighborhood of Syracuse, owned it, refused to sell the pharmaceuticals even when they were giving her the free supplies, refused to give it to the community until the actual New York State and they ended up taking her license because she would not prescribe their medicines. But like I said, she's still in business. She's doing her works out of South America. And I just wanted to publicly salute Dr. Jennifer Daniels. We love you, sister, and we will always support you. So thank you.
Well, that's a good point. But the thing about it is, like you just said, her license was taken. So what we are creating here, or what the chief has created a foundation, is for us to certify ourselves and provide what we need as a community versus going to outside of ourselves, because it all comes down to jurisdiction. If they give you their license, guess what? They can take it from you. So when we talk about government... Hush, I'm on. So when we speak in regards to government, that's what we're talking about. Us being able to have a jurisdiction where we control and govern ourselves as a people moving forward.
And just so everybody knows, you can also move forward and get the retroactive redress for your grievances, specifically to your personal genealogy and your tangible bloodline relatives from this soil. Everybody knows the body of work that I've done. I don't separate from American Indian, especially being a descendant of multiple treaty signers. And so such as a lot of other people. So you definitely have to choose what situation is going to apply to you. And I implore everybody to do their genealogy and definitely start with that, because there are many things that are here that are already held in trust that people may not be aware of by the United States, that they're entitled to, and they just have to go and claim it. But if you're vague in scope and not telling exactly where you are and what crimes were done against you, and how to combat that and make sure going forward that you insert yourself in these political bodies that actually get you something done. So I definitely want to make sure that we make a distinction that indigenous is fine, because there are people that are indigenous all over the world. But in America, in the United States, in North America particularly, our history is very unique and very delicate in scope, specifically to the children of the descendants of the American Indians. And it cannot be excluded because people don't like the word. They're in every treaty. And I don't care about them calling others Native Americans, because that would be subject to change, specifically once the American Indian has made a presentation of himself.
I have one question, and I don't mean this in any offensive way. Who on here is actually living and practicing what they preach? Because I am.
I am too. And I have my parents and all of my bloodline relatives heavily involved.
Did you trace back your lineage, and did you get
my
land?
lineage back to the 16th generation on multiple lines. I've been doing it for 20 plus years. Yes.
And did you get back the land that you're speaking of?
Yes, some of my family is still on the land. There are different parcels from different branches that have been neglected, that have moved out. People got shot off the land. There's all sorts of different variables. And again, at the third generation, there's 32 grandparents. I know all of them, and I can go back in detail. And there's so many, and doing it for thousands of other people over the course of 20 years. I know what it is that they have as well, too. So I don't want people to forget what personal stake they have in America, and also, forming a political body. I speak about that all the time. I've had the American Indian Political Party since 2016 or 17, I believe. And the constituents is over 40,000 of them. And definitely, I don't want people to ever get away from the lineage. And don't be afraid of being American Indian. It's been a problem. A lot of the teachings from all these other different great people that have done great bodies of work, they don't include the American Indian, and they've done that for a reason.
And I just have one more question. So the thing is, where do you put that when you get it back? And that's what I want to get to the root of. Where do we put our assets? Do we trust them to do right again?
Absolutely. Now that we have the information, those things belong to the family. That's not every poor monkey's land or every Chickahomini's land. That belongs. There's certain portions and parcels that belong specific to a specific side of the family. So when we say we and ours and stuff, everybody didn't have land here. That's also not true. Everybody did not have land here.
No, what I'm asking is, do you trust them to do right the second time around? So that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Do I trust who? I have family members that are actually Native American family members, and we have the same grandmother, and I am not a part of that tribe. But do I trust my grandmother's children?
No. I'm referring to where the property is registered, where everything is placed. I'm asking you, do you trust them to have your best interests?
I know what my best interest is. I know how to move things for my better interest, right? When you understand the law and your place in it, and I can put myself in the timeline.
Who enforces that?
What do you mean who forces that? There's agencies that enforce it. The American Indian is federal.
Why don't we have our own agencies to enforce that?
Who says that we don't have our own agencies? We have to have our own self-governing. We have our own self-governing body that has nothing to do with everyone else, right? Isn't that how you form a nation? And if you're going to cut me off, sister, we're not even going to have this conversation.
This Yashika. This is just okay. Hold on.
Can we have a reset, Yashika? Because I don't want to speak until I get a full understanding of what's going on.
Yeah, we're just trying to come together as indigenous people. We have some Moors on the stage. We have indigenous people who are affiliated with tribes, and also Black Americans who know they're indigenous and who are trying to get themselves in their correct status through genealogy. So we're just basically coming to the table, having these conversations, asking, the hard questions to figure out how some of us can move forward.
Shashika, what has happened thus far? What has, can you give me like a little synopsis?
No, it's too much. You kind of gonna have to just get it.
One thing's for sure, it's starting to feel a little biased against American Indians because of the interruptions.
It is. I agree.
That's what I'm sensing.
I'm a little frustrated.
Sensing like some ganging up going on, and that's not true.
Can I just put a disclaimer?
Hold on, Phoenix.
Okay, can I just put a disclaimer on the table? When we are speaking, like we are talking about, this is a delicate topic. Let's not lead with who here is really living in their truth. I think that can be a little offensive to those who are trying to come into the knowledge, and those of us on the stage that are still fighting the U.S. government to get back what's rightfully owed to us. So that question alone, it doesn't really, I don't know where exactly you're trying to lead with that type of question, but I think we can find solutions and understanding maybe where Phoenix is coming from for her tribe, as well as where you're coming from with your tribe, and then you allow everyone in the audience to make their decision about what works best for them and their tribe. So let me give
them a little bit of what they're looking for from the indigenous point of view, because I think she was trying to, I understand they're trying to put out jabs because they feel successful, and it's good that they're successful, at least thus far. But from an indigenous standpoint, from doing your genealogy and knowing your real people, there's an extreme power in that. And I can tell you, for one thing, that, my people, I know them and all four of my grandparents and so on, are of the same heritage. And we are one of so-called debunked people that I repatriated, okay? And we have a very long history. We have a whole lot of documented records. We have the longest continuous court records in the nation in Northampton County, Virginia. And because of this, yes, we can actually do all the things you do and more. We have our own ID cards. We do not have to abide by the standards of the Europeans. We enjoy the fact that we are both a nation unto ourselves and also citizens of America, and we want everything. We want every grant, every penny, every bit of land that we are owned, and we are getting it done. We have multiple land patents. We lawsuits, that go along with it. Yeah, you can do a lot by knowing your true heritage, knowing your true family, and embracing that. And there's a strength in that. And as far as being able to stand up against any scrutiny, we have that. And it's very strong because we, the Accomack Indians, are the first people to have to be placed on a plant, a prison camp or reservation in 1640. Okay, we were placed on that in 1640, and they changed our name from Accomack to Gingaskin. Gingaskin Reservation. We were moved off our beautiful Bay Coast onto the seaside, which you might think might be better, but it's actually kind of marshy because we have islands that block the sea. So it wasn't where our home, it's not where our main villages were. Anyway, when they changed our name, that they always do, that was the first name change that we experienced, and they changed our name to Gingaskin because Gingaskin is an anagram which means nigga skins, which also reinforces the fact of who we are and that they've always known that we are nigga, even though in the history books they will say we were mixed with blacks of unknown origin and we were no longer Indian, so therefore they took our reservation away in the 1800s. But we were filing suit in courts as early as 1641. So there's a lot of documentation, a lot of history. So we can heavy hit and we can do a lot of things. But my proposition was that I feel like there's all these indigenous groups. There's all these people who are indigenous who have multiple different identities all over the place. You know, Creek and I'm Cherokee and I'm this and I'm that. And I think, yeah, it's good that you guys have this kind of Moorish, not like ability to come together. And I'm not against Moorish law because law is necessary, as Phoenix is really well versed in it. But I can tell you this, is that you need the real history. What you're lacking in it is real genealogy and real history to root you. And so what I had proposed several weeks ago was that we have a confederacy where everybody unites under an umbrella. I don't care what you do as, you know, the Shi, you know, the Ali Shi folks, or, you know, however you're organized. That's, you do your thing, because the Acamax, we're going to do ours. But to have real nations who have, like, are rooted in history and documentation is a very powerful thing. I mean, I can be a protection for you, and your numbers can be a protection for us. I just proposed that. So I had a meeting about last month or so where 14 different individuals from about the country who have, you know, organized people in different places, Louisiana, Florida, California, et cetera, Texas, that we need to come together, because together we're more powerful. And we can do a lot more that way. I close my mic.
Can I say something real quick?
Oh yeah, go ahead, Chief.
All right, I think it's just some basic misunderstandings. So we know that we have had our names changed. This is just testify to that. They've been changing our names, changing different tribes' names. So when people say black people, it's a colloquial term. I don't argue with people on the street say I'm not black or I'm not African American. So these are terms that have been applied to us, just like American Indian. We are American Indians. We just understand that the term Indian is a misnomer. That's all. And we're not lacking in any records. We've been doing genealogy records for over 20 years with different families. So it's just a misunderstanding. We just took a different route, and that's it. So these misnomers, black, African American, American Indian, these are not things that we are distancing ourselves for. We just have a disclaimer to say, okay, we know that these are names that have been put on us, like other names have been put on us. So I don't want anybody to think that we are denigrating our American Indian history. We just have a caveat that says, look, this is a misnomer, and it's been strategically used against us to divide us. That's all. That's all we're saying.
Yeah, and I just build on this that I think I've heard maybe two people so far say that that we're operating as Moorish. Just want to make the claim again to make it known that we're not saying we're a Moorish organization. We are indigenous nationals, indigenous of North America. If we're going to do a nationality claim. So there are just two people mentioned that. I just want to clear that up.
Yeah, and the title of the room is No More Sovereignty. So actually, we were trying to address just, a different approach, or the wrong approach that people see in the media, and trying to correct that. So if you do want to rename the room and everybody can meet back over, I know that Brother Sharif has some things to do. I got some studying that I have to catch up with, and I don't know if Chief Ali has anything to take care of also, but I do want to thank you for that.
I'm quite okay with it. I don't know how everybody else feels, but if it's a vote, I'm quite okay with it staying this way, because I just wanted to, again, make the distinction, because even we set in the room, the rules are not going to be the same thing for the American Indian.
Say that one more time.
Hey, hold on.
It's not gonna have the same effect. The same certain practices that coming out of the people that are coming out of the Moorish sovereignty thing. It's going to be hard for them to catch up to the historical part and what part they play in it.
But I think that's why these conversations is important, though. You know what I mean? Maybe certain things don't, certain understandings don't come out of, the first conversation. And so, I hope the brothers will be willing to come back. Maybe we can go over some things and that we do want to talk about, that we do feel like is important, or some of the things that we feel like that works for us. You know what I mean? We see results, and maybe we can organize those things and bring them back to the table, and do a round 2 of this here if the brothers are open, and if y'all are open as well. You know what I mean?
I think it's great. I mean, these discussions definitely had to be had, but we have to just keep a open space. The Indian always has to hide behind everybody else's ideologies and things, and it just makes it very uncomfortable. And for everybody to be on the even playing field, I think it just needs to be a little more a little more respectful of that.
Hold on, one quick. I think Johnny, you wanted to say something because I know you just came off your mic when Phoenix was talking to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna add on to what Ali said about Indian being a misnomer. I think that mainly applies to people who are federally recognized and are federally entrusted with the U.S. government, as opposed to American Indians who have a pre-colonial lineage predating the U.S. So I just wanted to add on, to the difference between American Indians, or really Native Americans, who are federally recognized or have trusts that are trustee by the U.S. government, versus American Indians that have First Nation or First Contact peoples, or pre-colonial lineages predating the U.S. So that's just a difference between the two. And also, too, the moment that you trace a genealogy, you have a tribal community. Once you trace your genealogy and see that you have other families that trace back to the same ancestors that you do, you have a tribal community formed at that point. The moment you trace your genealogy just amongst your family, just amongst your immediate family members, you have a tribal community or a tribal government, or a tribe, and there's also other people who, trace back to the same ancestors that you do, so through, tangible bloodline documentation, you have tribal communities formed just by tracing your genealogy. So I just wanted to add that.
Can I say something about that real quick? Again, when I say misnomer, I mean the fact that there were no American Indians because we didn't speak English. We're using English terms that are misnomers for our ancestors. That's all I'm saying.
I think that. I wanted to say that we did. We did. We were trading with the world. So we spoke various languages.
Hold on, Miss Akamak. Miss Akamak, we want to let Dr. Ali finish, and you can respond to him. Go ahead.
Okay. So my point is, our primary language is not English. We were traveling all the way to Rome to visit popes. We have records of that, but it doesn't mean that the Roman terms that they called us are our names. So a misnomer is a misnomer. These are misnomers that we're using, and we use them colloquially, and it's fine. But there were no American Indians because we didn't call ourselves Indians before Europeans started calling us that. That's simple. But we can use the term. And that's all we're saying. It's not even a big deal. It's not even a divisive point. It's made a divisive point without understanding those factors. We're speaking these languages as our primary languages now when we didn't before. Yes, of course we had interpreters. We interpreted treaties. We spoke Arabic. Arabic was being spoken on this land. English was being spoken on this land. Latin was being spoken on this land because we were international people. But those were not our primary languages. That's my point.
Or you could say the same thing too about indigenous and aboriginal, because both of those terms are also Latin.
Yes, they are. They are.
We know that Indian is also recognized in law as the aboriginal inhabitants of North America. So it has a certain status. Yeah, it has a certain status that ties back, to America, as that recognizes people as the first people of this land, as opposed to misnomers like Black, African American. These are reclassifications that remove people from the capacity, even though Indian obviously is not our natural identity that that our ancestors was originally identifying. It was originally identifying as the names that they call themselves, but it has a certain status in law that no other identity or reclassification has, as the Aboriginal inhabitants of North America.
Can I say something? When you say it has a status in law, whose law are you talking about? It has a status in yours or Europeans?
Both. I would say both. And even in the context, Congress, Walter Flecker, his last was that they just rather to be called in, right?
Your mic is breaking up.
I think you're breaking up. But you have to understand that we were in the courts. We actually organized these Europeans. They didn't organize us. We gave them the Confederacy. We taught them. Just about everything they do, we taught them. So giving them credit like that's not even cool. It's not even cool because it's not even true. Okay? So these laws, baby, they're ours. Okay? And if you really are Indian and organizes that, you can roll that way.
Well, no, I just spoke on
the
the whole
yours,
history.
you wouldn't be calling yourself a United States citizen. I think that's what Dr. Ali is getting at, is understanding.
I call myself an Akamak. I'm an Akamak, okay? I'm an Akamak, all right? But I am both. I have the right to both, and I am both. And I'm taking both, and I'm using both, because that's the way it rolls.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with the sister. I'm in agreement with the sister because I just did a whole discussion on how and who we gave power to. So I think that maybe she came in a little later, but I'm in agreement with her. We did give them permission to be on our land. Like, this is recorded, this is documented. I think the major point that Nakina was bringing up and that I'm bringing up is we're all here as a result of being colonized. We can all agree on that. And they colonized through strategy, through war, through all types of maneuvers and tactics that they use. So all we're saying is we're implementing those same tactics and maneuvers to restore what is ours. And, different people are going to come up with different tactics. And all we have to understand, and when you're a person that's really been at war, you don't shun someone else's tactics because you don't know why they're using them. So I think as we mature, we'll see that there are different tactics from different peoples who are implementing those tactics. And then behind closed doors, we can talk about why we do what we do. But at the end of the day, we are here as a result of being colonized, and we have a mission to undo it. That's all.
Absolutely. I have the highest respect for you, Dr. Xi Ali. I know I've lived in Atlanta since 1994. I totally understand what you've been doing. I have the maddest respect. And my whole point is that we don't have to micromanage how we get there. You know what I mean? As long as we all have the same basic, goals in mind and at least the basic, the very, very smallest indigenous thing in common. And we just have to have that link up and just link up our numbers. And we'll be doing way better than we are now.
Agreed.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, I've been trying all night long and couldn't say anything for some reason. But I wanted to find out, in terms of executive of state, when you become a part of a nation that is set up like Dr. Ali's or otherwise, whatever property that you hold under your name, does that particular nation gain executive state over it?
No. Can she? I think she went out. Can you hear me, sis?
I muted my mic to make sure everyone could hear you.
Okay. Oh, no, that goes to your heirs, your children, or whoever you designate that it goes to. When a family owns property or of any type, it would naturally descend to their children if they don't have any other written instruments to direct it to go anywhere else. So the job of the government is to protect that family and the property against incursion from outside sources. That is our interest in it. We don't have direct or primary interest or ownership. That goes to the family.
Okay, because one of the questions that I had was about that, concerning what I'm seeing a lot of is people in some form of business or finance trying to set up a trust for a person's for an individual's trust in their business, and then in turn trying to also gain executive state over their property.
No, they would have to confer that to us for some legal reason of protection. There might be scenarios where they want to do that for their own purposes, but ultimately they're the authority that would be doing that. And maybe it would be for a business venture where you get, 5 families together and they want to carry out some type of project, and they want that to be done under a certain instrumentality as opposed to doing it as an individual. But every trust that we set up for the members and the nationals is owned directly by the people, and they have the right to direct who ownership would descend to. And if they haven't directed it to descend to anyone, it would descend to their direct children.
Okay, thank you kindly. I had several people come to me asking me, and I told them no, because it looked like a duck, sounded like a duck, walked like a duck. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome, sis.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Jesse.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my mic was going in and out. No, what I was saying before, just the biggest thing is just really understanding the playbook, the government playbook. Once you understand the system itself, then you'll know how to navigate through it, because it'll make sense. It'll be common sense. And so, like I was saying before, I think some of the biggest issue is that we're trying to use common law, with Roman civil law, or mixing those two different territorial jurisdictions. And that's really the problem. I see that a lot. So I think once we understand, the system itself, then you'll know how to operate, is what I was saying.
Thank you.
Brother, do you offer a resource for people to get that understanding and comprehension?
Yeah, absolutely. Where you come up. Absolutely. What I was saying is when you go back and you read the Federalist Papers, you'll see that you had these two groups, these two factions that were fighting here. They were fighting as to, should the federal government be involved in everybody's life using ecclesiastical law, or should it be every man for himself? And so these two factions got behind closed doors, and they created this system. So when it says Novus Ordo Seclorum, it's saying New Order of the Ages, meaning that we're the first civilization to have a dual federalism system of government, meaning when you understand the Constitution, you'll understand that the right to contract is embedded in the heart of it. So you get to decide, do you want to be a part of the public trust or not? You have that decision. You have that choice you can make. And so a lot of things, I don't want to say it was forced upon us, but it's kind of like illusion was used to make us think they had authority when they didn't necessarily have authority until we ended up, taking benefits and contracting into that jurisdiction. And so that's
Brother Jesse, you obviously have a lot of comprehensive knowledge on this, but the reason I asked that question is, so if people want to reach out to you, like for your resources and things that you can share with them, this discussion isn't to just go into too elaborative of certain processes, because, the lawful and legal things are pretty lengthy, but you should definitely add your Twitter or an Instagram so people can, tap in with you on those resources and things of that nature.
Yeah, I'll give you the email. I'll put it on my profile, because I have my LinkedIn contact information. So I'll give you the email.
Okay, thank you, brother.
Where you can reach out to me.
Yeah, okay, so Jesse, when you do that, just tap back in so then we can know, so people can get your email, okay?
No problem, sis. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. We're still popcorning, so, if someone has a question or a comment, go ahead.
I just wanted to state just all of the things that we're talking about and our solutions. If anyone is actually kind of interested in knowing more, we host an annual summit every year, and it's coming up this August. We have both non-nationals and nationals join. We have some of the best doctors in the nation doing, things like bioscans, or some of the best lawyers that can assist you guys with genealogy, with tax-exempt businesses, and just seeing a little bit more about what we do and the energy that we bring to the table. So if anyone's interested, you can check us out at www.governmentreparations.org. And it is hosted in Atlanta. It's going to be August, I believe, 15th to the 17th. Families are welcome. We have vendors supporting, Aboriginal businesses. So if anyone wants to promote their business at our event, you can do so that way too.
I think there'll be some free, some static in here. That's not me. But there may be free bioscans.
Hold on 1 second. Wax, you can't come off mute because you got some serious static going on. So you might need to reset your phone or something. Okay, go ahead, Ken.
What about now?
Okay, that's better.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad. Maybe it's my and it's with shock. Sorry, with shock. And I just want to add on to that point. If you're interested in, knowing about, and a lot of the things that Dr. Ali is saying, he's put it all out in his books. And like he said, you can go to the governmentreparation.org website and download a protocol manual if you have any questions. Because if we do this next time, you'll be more abreast to what he's saying. And you can purchase some of his books. Also, if you're interested in, coming through the plebiscite, joining and becoming a national, you can either go, I know you got Brother Ken over there, or you can come through. It looks like Nakina left off, but I work for Indigenous of the North as well. You can go to indigenousofthenorth.com and check out the website and come through there as well.
Right. I was just about to say at the Aboriginal Summit, the annual Aboriginal Summit, we are also doing bioscans and indigenous cosmology readings using the Tzolk'in calendar, which is misnomer the Mayan calendar. You may know it as the Mayan calendar, but we have a very interesting, powerful system using that Tzolk'in calendar. So we do cosmology readings, indigenous cosmology readings at the event as well. So y'all pull up if you can. You know what I mean? It's going to be very interesting. This is going to be very, very special. So y'all pull up if y'all can make it out there, and it's we love to see y'all out there. Absolutely.
Also, the Accomack Indians also do a summit every year in Virginia. That is Indigenous Weekend, formerly known as Columbus Day Weekend. This year it's the 10th and 11th. And during that summit, we have various speakers. We have panel discussions. We also have a lot of different artifacts, very, very old texts, old books, documentation. We go over your genealogy. We have a lot of, we have music. We have entertainment, games for the kids. We also have the ability this year, as we did last year, to go to an actual ant plantation where my big mama grew up on, and her people were on Air Hall Plantation. We actually walked the grounds all the way behind everything, investigate everything, go to the water side. We also will be looking at indigenous grave sites. In addition, this year, we'll be getting a little bit deeper and maybe going to the actual slave grave sites and being able to kind of do a little bit of archaeology there. We also have the ability to give you the opportunity to understand yourself from a holistic point of view. We have various vendors. We have a really great crystal vendor that's going to be there this year. In addition, we have various things that are available for sale, a lot of holistic creams, and we also are getting back to nature. So we're actually raising the turkeys that we are known to raise. We're raising them from an egg, and we have some pullets that are coming up. We also are back to farming, so we actually have our license as hemp farmers, We just got that in Virginia. So we're going to go back to our roots as being the actual first known herbalists. So I would love for you to come. We also have a bow hunter. We have a person that's our archer, a young woman, indigenous woman who identifies as indigenous, who is a fantastic archerist and bow hunter. She wins contests all over the country. And she was there last year. She'll be there this year, letting you have the opportunity, even the children, to learn how to use a bow and arrow accurately. So come enjoy. We have a lot of different things. Music, like I said, we have saxophonists and different things. So, come and enjoy. It's 2 days of activity, the 10th and 11th of October in Eastville, Virginia. It is on the grounds of our original, part of what was our original reservation / prison camp. So it's a very powerful place, and with all we intend to take that place back and redo it so that it is an indigenous experience. It'll be a place where you can come and actually experience indigenous life and history in a different way. So thank you.
Beautiful. Peace also to anyone out here. I'm studying under the Aboriginal Medical Association. And if you go to my website in my bio, www.healthysadies.com, I'm learning what the Mayans or the Shi or the Olmecs, the remedies that we put together. I'm learning the diet that we actually ate. We're doing real life testing on food, fruits, and vegetables to the point where we're seeing the bacteria that they're putting in the food, to the E. coli, the formaldehyde that our people of O Genetics, no matter what nomer or name you go by, we're testing in real life and we're seeing what's happening to our DNA. So I have free 15-minute consults. I make meal plans. I bake. I make some really damn good biscuits. So if you check out my Instagram, I love to make sweets and just heal our people. So follow me if you want to know more about the indigenous food diet.
I have to interject and say those biscuits are yeast free, and the ingredients do induce melanin, increasing eumelanin in black bodies. So those are something different. It's hard to find yeast free, vegan, carbon based biscuits, man. Tap in them Mercedes.
I also wanted to say that somebody reached out to me last week to kind of help to come up with a delineation for a petition that they want to help to write for the CBC. And so in the part that is about the American Aboriginals or the American Indian, they were also calling for details of all of the Indian roles. So I have in my bio my email address, and I also, if you look at my @naturalbrownsugar, underneath my name, that's also my Telegram. If anyone has, list of Indian roles that they know of, to just add to this list, because I want to make sure I have as many as possible. So when they do this description in detail, everyone is covered. So yeah, if you have any information on that, you want to help with that, because again, this is always grassroots. It's about the people, we the people. We have a lot of different people doing things in different areas, even the political realm. So if you can contribute, Johnny Aborigine, I actually sent you a DM too, because I know you were talking earlier about the different roles. So I wanted to try to pick your brain as well to get some of the tribes we can kind of help push this forward, because I know they're trying to get this petition out soon. So she did ask me today if I had gotten any more. So I just want to ask one final time before I submit the final list to her.
Hey, Yashika, this is Jesse. Okay, if anybody want to reach out, the email address is info@amexnew.city. That way, if you guys, want any type of help in understanding the system, I'm more than glad to help out, because I think that's really important, and I think once we understand it, it will alleviate a lot of problems. I'm pretty much guarantee you that.
Can you repeat the email, Brother Jesse? I couldn't hear what you said.
It's info@amexnew.city.
placed it on his bio.
Yeah, so just check it out. Anybody, like I said, anybody that is wanting to learn about the actual government system, reach out to me because definitely once you understand it, I'm telling you, it's going to change. It's going to change the life, and then you're going to have one of those moments where you're going to say, "Oh my God, I can't believe they didn't teach this stuff in school."
And also, my email address too is just my first and last name at yahoo.com. And again, my Telegram is the @ right up below my name if you do want to contribute. It's in my profile too.
Hi, this is Celestine. So I also want to add that in this audience, to the people in the audience, if they're looking for help with their genealogy, we have expert historians as well as genealogist specialists on the platform tonight. We have Yashika, who does genealogy, as well as Shan, Phoenix Moon, Johnny Aborigine, Lyron Cyrus of the Accomack Indians. And if I forgot anyone else, please add your name into it now. So if you want to learn about your American Indian history, you can connect with those people that I just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Celestine. And I also wanted to quickly add that we do on Clubhouse teach a lot of information about ancient American history and modern day history in America as well. Feel free to join our Discord. I have the link in my bio, or you can click on my Instagram profile in my bio and you'll see the link in my website. So, check it out. If you guys want to join the study group, I will be frequently posting new links, as well as the other members be posting new information that we get as we go. And just to kind of keep it rolling, that way we all can stay on one accord with the information and it starts making sense. Once you know the history, it can start making sense why you can maneuver the way we maneuver going forward. So just want to say that. Thank you, guys.
Shan, Yashika, and Big.
I will also encourage everybody that Celestine has a website, don't you, Celestine? And she sells fantastic products. She's an excellent vendor, excellent businesswoman. Everything she has is beautiful and smells great and feels great. I also would like, she was at the summit last year. She'll be at the summit again this year. I also want to say that even if I cannot go out and support Dr. Xi's summit this year, I'm definitely sending my people out there. I had already intended to do that before, but definitely I have my people online to attend the summit. They're the ones that are in Atlanta to come out there. And I encourage everybody to support each other as many ways possible. That's the best thing we can do.
Absolutely. If there's any Black businesses or anything, anybody want to come up and kind of just say what you do or whatever, and you want to plug your business, do that as well, because we need to support each other. Also, the club Truth to Higher Learning, you can tap the green house at the top of this room. This is our club that we do. We host rooms all the time. Just, stuff that we need to about ancient America, different topics, just really digging through the timeline of what happened over here, and all the key players that were a part of our quote-unquote demise. So please, join the club. You can tell a friend. We try to host at least a room or two a week. Sometimes it goes 24 hours, 48 hours, depending how much, smoke we, just a disruption we cause on the Clubhouse. People hate the truth, so we always have to combat that, all of that mess too. I think, Ms. Shelley, did you want to say something real quick?
Yes, I wanted to say I appreciate you, Yashika, Big, and Shan. I didn't get to mention you earlier. I didn't see you, sorry. And Ishmael. Thank you for starting. Thank you so much, Shan. Thank you all for starting this room and maintaining such a balance with which we can learn to communicate. I really appreciate it for me to make applicable to my own personal self. First. So thank you so much. And I wanted to say also, I Unplugged, which is a tour production company, is now intaking artists. We have our administrative staff set up. And so if you're a singer-songwriter, musician, or any of the major visual arts, you'll want to go to our website, which is at iunplugged.com. That's spelled EYE. And then the word unplugged.com, iunplugged.com. So thank you so very much. And I'll see you all the next time. Yashik, I definitely want to try to link with you.
Okay. Definitely, Shelly.
Yeah, I just wanted to, so we're doing the quick plugs. Just let everybody know that I am a jurist with the Aboriginal Republic of North America, Amaru lineage, which in turn you can think of as a tribal lawyer. What we do is everything from debt discharge, that, whether that goes into credit or other modalities of debt, with potential of lawsuits that can be beneficial in your favor. So not only remove the debt, but also possibly win lawsuits in your favor with money. We do tribal businesses registrations, everything from LLCs, nonprofits, corporations, holding companies, etc. Of course, we assist with genealogy. We have a lot of people here that do that, and but we do it as well. And we assist with just various of legal issues. That's what the jurists of ARNA actually specialize in. So, with the list above. So if you follow me on my IG, I have my website on there. You can tap in with me there. And we have a regional website that we work with another law firm in our region as well. We tag team on cases. So y'all reach out if you want to build, and we're here for you. You know what I mean? Let's get out of debt, get tax exempt, get our land back, and move and live like we're supposed to.
Peace. I got a question it's pretty much for y'all are aligned on the top 3 rows, and in honor to the elders and the scholars in the room. The question really attributed to y'all, such as Brother Ishmael and Doctor, and even Sister Phoenix. What are some A to Z processes that you all know are patterns for success for some of the newer people in the room who are not familiar with these type of processes? How can somebody start who's not familiar with these type of things?
I think that was the purpose of this particular forum. It was really just trying to show different examples of different methods, because you're going to have various methods in order to achieve the same type of a goal. I would think ultimately the goal is for, some type of independence. So when you're bringing in people that have been doing it for a long period of time, you bring in those minds like what Brother Sharif has been doing. You bring in those minds about what, Chief Ali has been doing, just to kind of add perspective to it, because there's many things or errors that are made today that we're able to say that we were trying to prevent, from happening. So I would say just try to study what some of the people have been doing. When Sharif and I were doing these things 30 years ago, as he was saying earlier, it was before the internet. So what we were trying to say is just kind of study, reach out to them, if you have access to them, either privately, or we do set up private, consultations, or just to reach out to us privately. We're able to have even these type of conversations, maybe not in a public forum, but in a more private forum. Maybe it'd be like 30 of us being able to iron out certain kinds of differences also, and trying to refine our methodology. So I would just say take advantage of that.
I want to chime in because I know I'm about to jump out of here. But as far as A to Z processes, besides the fact that our primary goal is it should be to restore our heritage and our lineage, which, we're talking about genealogy. So we have a lot of people who have already presented that. We're here after we've restored our genealogy to build a jurisdiction, and it takes wealth. Now, what is wealth? Wealth is the ability to accumulate resources and use them, for whatever purposes you want. So the A to Z processes on resources are how are you designing your individual purpose? I would offer that the people on the line who are in ARNA, who do the readings that we do, can really help you with that, because sometimes we waste our individual time not knowing or designing a true purpose for ourselves.
And then when you get that particular purpose, you can say, okay, well, I'm good at medicine, which is one of the things that I'm good at. And so the A to Z process with that is we can take you in ARNA from knowing nothing about the human body to being a full-blown entrepreneur that is a doctor that can interact with your tribal members and non-tribal members for the rest of your life. Sometimes I tag myself as $1 million herbalist because I literally made myself a millionaire dealing with herbs, period. I got all the records to prove it, from writing the books to the products to etc. And I didn't just do it. I shared the methodology with everybody who comes into the Aboriginal Medical Association, or if you're a jurist. We go through the processes of, okay, you got people talking about getting rid of debt and doing all this stuff. Then you got the sovereign citizens talking about accept for value, treasury accounts. We can, like it's just said, get you past all of that so you don't have to get involved in that, and you can learn what it is to start a business, to have business credit, to have a paydex score, to go walk into an iPhone store and pay for none of the phones because you got perfect credit. These are things that we can walk you through, but they are part of institutions. They take you time to talk to one of the jurists or somebody else, possibly take some coursework, and then get into the other phases of entrepreneurialism. But we do have those things available depending on what you want to do. But I think the first thing that any one of us needs to do is figure out what our strengths are, our attributes, and design our purpose. I always tell people, you don't discover your purpose, you design it. You discover your attributes, because your attributes can be used to make multiple purposes, but you design those purposes. And I think getting the reading, the in-depth reading, it's not like an astrology reading, it's not a tarot reading, it's like those on steroids. And I think that can help as you further look at how you're going to start your family and build your wealth. And I'd like to thank everybody who participated tonight, even the people who are a little testy. Some of y'all I don't know, but I love y'all anyway because it happens. I'm going to treat us like we family unless somebody say otherwise, because I'm here to help and to learn from everybody who's been on this call. But I thank y'all. I appreciate y'all for even inviting me. Thank y'all.
Brother Chief, thank you for taking the time and really just responding to the call. I truly do appreciate it. And I think these type of relationships are kind of what it takes. I know, as we take over City Hall in our city, we already have on the plans of what are the districts we're going to be taking over within the city itself. So I think these type of relationships allows for those type of things to take place, to establish your own communities, to make sure that you're, amongst your own people, and having the funds allotted aside that's going to be, for the community's betterment. You won't have to worry about patrolling our area. We'll have our own people. We're already putting things in place, and not even just limiting it to urban cities. We're talking about taking over like farmlands and things like that of certain locations. So we have a lot of big things that we have in plan, and I want to make sure that we fellowship with one another and continue that relationship.
Indeed.
I just want to add that we can't let this night go by without acknowledging Big Chief. He's also having a powwow next year in March. I believe it's the 19th and the 20th in Texas. So you guys can put that on your calendar so that you can be a part of it. And he has it on his screen. You can tap on it and get more information. Thank you.
Right. Appreciate you, Miss Celestine. That'll be on the March 19th and the 20th. And it's going to be an indigenous conference. And, it's going to be modeled similar to what we had tonight, where we can get, the brilliant minds and the people that do share interests. This is our home. And, something been taken away from us. And, just putting together the right, methods to get our land back and, restore ourselves here as indigenous government, you know what I mean, in our own right. And so I want to appreciate you, Dr. Ali, coming through, Chief. It was real, man. It was real. I want to appreciate you. Also, Sharif Bey, too, if you was here. And Ishmael Bey, I want to appreciate you, too, You know what I mean? Y'all coming through, putting it together, man. Also, Raspy, Moon, Bibbs, Jesse, everybody who participates tonight, Ms. Ackerman, and Johnny. Yeah, it's been real. And